across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mandy's out 4 decades and 3 scandals, or 3 that we know about. Guess what? Number 10 knew all about it. They knew that he lived in Jeffrey Epstein's flat and still appointed him as U.S. ambassador. So we've got the state visit next week, not just because my mother's coming over, but Donald Trump will be here as well. And guess what? We don't have an ambassador. We don't have an ambassador, and the US president is going to be here. This is an absolute screw-up of epic proportions, and it's at Keir Starmer's door less than a week after he lost his deputy prime minister. Who's going to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party? Well, we'll know the candidates in just over an hour's time. We'll have full analysis of that. I'm sure you can't wait. There's lots to discuss in regard to the scandal, in regard to Lord Mandelson, and the fact that our very own Harry Cole, on his brand new show, which is of course called Harry Cole Saves the West, basically brought him down with his revelations. We'll get into all of that. We'll talk to a Labour cabinet minister who served under Peter Mandelson, or served with Peter Mandelson, I should say, before his first resignation. That was a mortgage scandal. Why do they keep appointing these people? There are loads of people who'd be really good ambassadors to Washington. We'll also talk about the very, very sad news about Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old who was assassinated with a shot through the neck. There have been some developments in that. We'll bring them all to you. Of course, the FBI says a weapon is found, but the killer is still at large. They've questioned someone, but they've let him go without charge. We'll follow that, of course. We'll go to the United States and talk about that as well, and send in your memories too. Charlie Kirk was, of course, a very, very important figure in the free speech movement. Many people in this building, one of the makeup women today showing me videos talking about how sad she is that he is gone, and the fact that his whole idea was to have reasonable conversation, to disagree without being disagreeable, which is what we do on this show. I want your thoughts on these 2 major stories. We'll talk about the sport, we'll talk about other things as well, we'll talk about what you want to talk about, but these 2 major stories are dominating the day. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please if you would. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. I'm back from holiday, more on that later in the show on where I've been. Thank you so much for your company. Loads to discuss between now and 7 here on Talk. Well, let's get straight into this absolute scandal. Keir Starmer's judgment in question yet again. December 1998, Peter Mandelson resigned as Secretary of State for Trade and Industry after it was revealed he had accepted an undeclared interest-free loan of £373,000 from a fellow minister to purchase a house. Some people called it Notting Hill Gate. This raised concerns over transparency, although he denied any improper conduct. Then he was back in Cabinet as Northern Ireland Secretary. I remember this as a teenager at the time. His second resignation, January 2001, over allegations he had influenced the processing of a passport application for the Hinduja brothers. Despite an inquiry clearing him of impropriety, he resigned after admitting he had provided incorrect information regarding his involvement. This is a pattern. Years later, 2024, he was appointed ambassador to Washington by Keir Starmer. Off he went to Washington. Guess what? He hadn't declared that he had a much longer discussion and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein than was previously known. Emails came to light. Earlier today, the Foreign Office Minister Stephen Doughty explained the reasons behind Lord Mandelson's dismissal.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States. The emails show, Mr. Speaker, that the depth and extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. In particular, Mr. Speaker, Lord Mandelson's suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction was wrongful and should be challenged is new information. And in light of that, Mr. Speaker, and mindful, as we all are, of the victims of Epstein's appalling crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect.
The depth and extent of the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was not known to the degree which it should have been. The depth and extent was materially different than had been presented. That is about as close as you get in the House of Commons to saying he lied, or at the very, very least, he didn't give the full account of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He lived in his flat, for goodness sake, when Jeffrey Epstein was in jail, because Jeffrey Epstein was a sex trafficker and a paedophile. Yesterday, this is what Keir Starmer said in support of the former U.S. ambassador.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Absolutely. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He's now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
Let's just take a moment to recall Lord Mandelson's grovelling apology regarding his connections to Jeffrey Epstein, the paedophile, the sex trafficker, the person who raped children, his best pal. He spoke to Harry Cole on Harry's new programme, Harry Cole Saves the West.
One, I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done. And I regret very much that I fell for his lies. I fell and accepted assurances that he had given me about his indictment, his original criminal case in Florida. Like very many people, I took at face value what he said. With hindsight, with fresh information, many years later, we realized that we had been wrong to believe him. He's a charismatic criminal liar, we now see, and I regret very much indeed. I felt it like an albatross around my neck since his death in 2018 or 19, when it was. I feel a tremendous sense of regret. Not only that I met him in the first place, but that I continued the association, and I took at face value the lies that he fed me and many others.
Well, neither of those clips has aged particularly well in the last 24 hours. And that doesn't quite stack up from Lord Mandelson. He took at face value the lies. Well, if someone is criminally convicted of something, if someone goes to prison for things like trafficking children, raping children, well, then perhaps you should take what the court says at face value. Perhaps you shouldn't stay in that person's flat. This is really fishy, and the question is, well, it's worse than fishy. It's wrong. It's morally wrong. Keir Starmer knew about this. He knew about Angela Rayner not paying £40,000 in stamp duty. He stood by her. He said he had confidence in her. He said he had confidence in the process. And let's take him at his word and say the process worked. She resigned. Fine. Okay, it took too long. She shouldn't have taken 2 weeks to resign, but she did. But here is Lord Mandelson providing assurances to Keir Starmer that what he was told by Jeffrey Epstein were taken at face value. I fell for his lies. I accepted his answers. Well, when a court tells you someone has gone to prison for paedophilia, do you then go to them and say, well, what do you say? Is this true? Is this not? Can I stay in your flat? And then the Prime Minister of this country, despite security concerns raised about Peter Mandelson, we now know this has emerged today, despite security concerns raised about his role as our man in Washington. This is not just someone who's a friend, this is not just someone who's an advisor, this isn't someone who's even Deputy Prime Minister, okay, a very powerful role. This is someone who goes to the White House and represents you and me, the ambassador to Washington. What on earth was Keir Starmer thinking? The judgment when it comes to Angela Rayner, the judgment when it comes to Peter Mandelson, appointing him in the first place, knowing what he knew. And now, oh, it's new information, and saying 24 hours ago he had full confidence in him. This is a Prime Minister who we need to question very, very closely about his judgments about people. He's just appointed a lot of people to senior cabinet positions. Does he know everything about the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood? Is he happy enough with her? Does he check her backstory? Is she the right person to be Home Secretary? We're going to get in an hour's time news of who the people who want to be Deputy Leader of the Labour Party are. Have they been scrutinised? Have they been vetted? Do we know that they're right to be Deputy Leader of the largest currently political party in this country? These are questions we need to seriously ask about a Prime Minister who's only been in office for 14 months, but has shown on at least 2 occasions very bad judgment about people, to say nothing about his political judgment about the winter fuel payments, for example, which he U-turned on, about welfare, which he U-turned on. I could go on. Let's speak to Clive Soley, Lord Soley, who's a former chairman of the Labour Party under Tony Blair's leadership. Lord Soley, did you always know that Peter Mandelson was a wrong-un?
No, and I think, Peter, you're going over the top on this.
In what way? What have I said that's not true?
Oh, yeah, no, hold on a minute. You're almost doing a Tory party broadcast. That's fine.
What have I said that's not true, Clive?
That's where you stand. But
it's not where I stand. It's not where I stand. What have I said that's not true?
Let me finish, Peter.
Well, say something other than attacking me.
Can you let me finish, Peter? Or you don't let people speak? Which is it? Right. When the new information came out, Keir was right to say he's got to go. Peter Mandelson's a very frustrating person, really, because he's very able and has been.
In what way is he able?
In all sorts of ways.
In what way is he able?
One of his central failings has been his willingness to believe and get close to very rich men, mainly men, but also women. Now, that doesn't help, so he has to go. But I don't think you turning this into such a big thing, I have to say to you, as a journalist, for heaven's sake, the really big story, even bigger than this, and it's big enough, I agree, is that Russia has launched attacks on a NATO state, and we could be at war
Clive,
in
that's
Europe.
distraction. Clive, we've been talking about that for 2 years. You're diverting. Lord Soley. I have to stop you. I'm not. You're diverting from the story. This is a story about the Prime Minister's judgment.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm dealing with it. What I'm also saying is that this is a very important story. I accept that. You haven't even mentioned the attack on the NATO state. I haven't even mentioned it.
That was yesterday. The attack on the NATO state was yesterday. We've talked about that. This is today. The U.S. ambassador has resigned.
You are not talking about it. Come back to that when you are. Let's come back to this. Peter Mandelson there. Yes, he has to go. I think many people will not understand that Peter has been a good strategy. It would have been good for this country.
In what way? Why is he able? Why does everybody say he's a really able, amazing person? He's not. He's shown really bad judgment on 3 occasions over 4 decades. He shouldn't have been anywhere near the Great House.
And I just said to you, his failing was on judgment about rich people and being close to
surely,
them, right?
Surely we must now question the Prime Minister's judgment, Clive.
No, because...
No, not at all.
If he was... hold on, let me finish. If he was also very good at sorting out the deal with the United States on tariffs and also on Ukraine and Gaza...
So it's fine that he's mates with a paedophile?
Now, that's not a reason for him to stay. It really isn't, to me, of what's happened. But you have to take it as that. And when it came out that he had ignored the plea of guilty, it was a plea of guilty that made the difference, actually, because there's no reason why you shouldn't stand by a friend
Clive, can I ask you a question?
You think has been wrongfully convicted. But if that person has pleaded guilty, and that's where it is right that he go, and it is right that when Keir found that out, he dismissed it.
If you had a friend who you were close to, who was convicted of paedophilia, would you subsequently stay in their house?
Absolutely no, I wouldn't, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, that is a lack of judgment, and Peter Mandelson, just let me finish. Peter Mandelson should have told Keir Starmer that is what he did. In fact, we knew that months ago. This is about Keir Starmer's judgment. I'm not over-egging this, and you haven't said a single thing that I've said that is factually incorrect.
It's about Peter not telling him the initial information, which was vital But first of all, that Epstein had pleaded guilty, and secondly, that he'd stayed in his flat. Because the reality is, people do have friends who get into trouble, and their friends might well believe that they're innocent. That's happened lots of times.
Yeah, but we don't appoint those people. Yeah, but we don't, Clive. But we don't appoint those people to be our man in Washington. Okay, this is about more than just who's your friend. This is about who represents us in Washington.
The difference is when it gets as serious as this, and the person has concealed information. That is when you take action. Yes,
okay, we knew months ago, and Keir Starmer knew months ago, that Peter Mandelson had stayed in Jeffrey Epstein's flat when he had been in prison on paedophilia charges. It is absolutely reasonable, and you have not refuted a single factual point that I have made over the past 17 minutes. And if you want to, you're more than welcome to do so, and I'll shut up and let you do so, Clive. But the point...
I can't imagine you shutting up for a minute.
Well, I will. Well, refute them. Go. I'll shut up for a whole minute. Refute the factual points. Go.
I think what I'd like to hear, first of all, is just how much Keir Starmer did know, because I'm not convinced he knew that Epstein... Peter Mandelson was concealing the fact that Epstein had pleaded guilty. It does make a big difference, because I really would say to you, there are lots of people who have friends who get into trouble, and then they believe that that friend of theirs is not guilty and has been wrongfully convicted. I can give you examples of that, and lots of examples where the media people have done it too. And it's very easily done, but there is no excuse for Peter Mandelson, concealing the information, staying in the flat, and also about the fact that Epstein had pleaded guilty, still being friendly with him. But at that stage, and I speak in this way, putting on my old hat from many years ago as an ex-probation officer, I always thought very carefully about sex offenders, because they were nearly always extremely devious and very dishonest, very manipulative. Clearly, Epstein was, and he's clearly got lots of people in his package who become... Now, when that comes out, you have to get rid of it. That's what's happened.
Okay, Clive, you've spoken for 1 minute and 17 seconds. You've not refuted a single factual point that I have made. You haven't refuted a single... No, let me speak now. You've spoken, Clive. You haven't refuted a single factual point that I've made. Every single thing that I said was factual and real and a reasonable point to make. Why do you not think that this is about Keir Starmer's judgment?
I don't think it's about his judgment on things that really matter. What really matters at the moment...
Clive, what planet are you on?
Wait a minute.
What planet are you on?
What really matters...
U.S. ambassador.
Peter, right now, Russians are probing NATO...
So it doesn't matter who our ambassador to Washington is. Doesn't matter. He can be friends with a paedophile.
We could be close to a third world war, right?
Okay, Clive, we're not close to a third world war. Breaking news, we're not close to a third world war. That's not going to happen today. What I've asked you about, time and time again, is why this is not about Keir Starmer's judgment. Can you answer that point, please?
Keir Starmer's judgment on how he's handling Europe and Russia, and now Gaza too, is very good. His ability to handle this particular issue was wrong. Bad, okay? It is not going to lead to people losing their lives. You've got to get real about this. You're behind the news, in fact. The news is really big. Mandelson's story is big. I'm not saying you shouldn't cover it.
Why don't we decide what the news stories are, because we're a news station, and once again, you fail to answer the question about why this isn't about Keir Starmer's judgment, because she says it doesn't really matter. I would argue that with a state visit next week of the President of the United States, and the fact that we don't have a U.S. ambassador who's meant to be behind the organisational side of that, along with many other people here in the UK, I would say that's actually a really, really important thing. I would also say get a 10-day period where you lose your US ambassador and your Deputy Prime Minister through lack of judgment is a serious issue for the Prime Minister of this country.
Right, yeah, it is serious, but the way you're addressing it doesn't explain much, and it doesn't deal with the real issues that are even bigger.
Well, I've asked you on numerous occasions for explanations or for refutations
of what
I said.
Judgment.
That's fine. Okay, absolutely fine.
People are listening, and they can judge it. All I'm saying to you, beware of the bigger dangers.
Okay, well, we cover stories of We cover stories of Russia, Ukraine. I'm actually just back from the Middle East, which is where I was for the last few days, so believe me, we'll continue to cover those stories too. Lord Soley, I'm not sure we made much progress there, but thank you very much for your time. That is Clive Soley, who's former chairman of the Labour Party under Tony Blair's leadership. If you want to respond to that, feel free to do so. 0344 499 1000. Dave in London says Starmer has to go. His judgment is miles off across several scandals, continuing to support members of his extended team even when it's obvious that they had to go. The Mandelson scandal is at another level, as Starmer was aware of the Epstein connection from the start. Stephen Wales says the only thing Mandelson regrets is getting found out. Just look at the love letter that Mandelson wrote about Epstein, calling him his best pal, a convicted paedophile. Dave in Dorset says, will his lordship Mandelson relinquish his title with a drop in salary, which I'm sure he won't miss, mean that he will be taking a seat in the Lords for his £340 allowance? An albatross around his neck, has he ever seen one? Simon in Durham says, Starmer couldn't announce the sacking of Mandelson himself, he gets his lackey to do it in Parliament. Craig in Sunderland, surely the honours given to both Peter Mandelson and Sir Keir Starmer should be removed. And another person says, how embarrassing, a Keir Starmer making a fool of himself of the US ambassador. The Prime Minister needs to resign. We need a general election now. Was I being unfair to Clive Soley there? Was I being in any way unfair to him? I let him speak at various points. I know I spoke a lot, but it was because I wasn't getting answers to basic questions. This fundamentally is about the judgment of the Prime Minister. He's a Prime Minister with bad judgment, bad political judgment, bad judgment about people, bad judgment about issues. If you disagree with me or you agree with me, I want to hear from you this afternoon. As always, I will get as many people on the air between now and 7 o'clock as possible. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
I think the legacy to Charlie Kirk is those of us who can must push on and stand rock solid.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Some breaking news from the Wall Street Journal. An ammunition found at the scene of Charlie Kirk's assassination was reportedly engraved with pro-transgender and anti-fascist messages. The FBI has revealed that the gunman jumped off the building around 200 yards opposite from where Charlie Kirk was shot in the throat and fled into a local neighbourhood on foot. Bullet casings from the older model .30 caliber hunting rifle, which was discovered in a nearby woodland, were engraved with wording in support of trans and Antifa ideology, according to the Wall Street Journal. Markings were also inside the rifle. Officials said they had tracked the college-age suspect's movements and had video identifying him, but were conducting further investigations before releasing it. Palm and footprints were used to help track down the suspect. We'll talk more about that in a second, but I want to take a quick call from Daniel in Epsom about Peter Mandelson and Keir Starmer. Daniel, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, Peter. I just want to say that it's quite obvious that he's a bad judge of character, and he has a habit of making terrible decisions. I mean, they've only been in a year. You had the housing minister with a housing scandal. You had the anti-corruption minister with an alleged corruption
scandal. Yeah, that's right.
You had the guy we had the guy that was in charge of homelessness who'd made some people...
it was a woman, Russian Ali, jacked up the rent, so she kicked out her tenants, jacked up the rent by £700, and then said, by the way, we're going to slap you with $2,500 for a cleaning fee for the... It must have been very clean at the end of that. She was the homelessness minister. Yeah. I mean, it just goes on, doesn't it? And then you've the housing secretary, as you correctly say, having to resign because she didn't pay her stamp duty. I mean, if this was a TV drama, if I had pitched this to, you know, Netflix saying, I've got a drama about, you know, a fictional Labour government, they'd say, sorry, too unrealistic, mate.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't, you couldn't even make it up. I mean, I just think that Starmer wanted this job. He was desperate for the top job, and now he's got it. He must hate every day, or he must hate it as much as
I think it's coming across. I think it's coming across, Daniel. I can sense that he's not enjoying himself. I mean, look, it's a really big job. But you know, someone like Tony Blair, David Cameron, they were enjoying themselves as Prime Minister most of the time, not all of the time. But you knew they wanted. You know, like, I disagreed with them both on many things, but they were in the job to attempt anyway to make the world a better place. They would have thought that anyway. But I'm not sure Keir Starmer knows what he's doing. I'm not sure he believes anything. Do you?
You know what? Do you know what it's emblematic of? Is he is almost a microcosm of the entire government. It's the standard of MPs, I think, is woeful, utterly at an all-time low. They almost seem like they don't know what they're doing. All of their policies, to me, seem ideologically driven. They seem to be at odds with the British majority on virtually every issue. They're at odds with the majority of Britons, and that's why the Con Lab Uniparty is finished, and they don't realise it yet.
Well, I think that's a really, really fair point, Daniel. I think a lot of people are going to agree with you. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Just on that interview with Lord Soley as well. Bob in Cheltenham's been in touch, says, great to have you back, Cardi P. Thank you, Bob. Lord Soley owes you an apology. Mandelson's and Starmer's judgment is an important story, deflecting, insulting you by questioning your skills as a journalist, your impartiality by calling the interview a Conservative Party political broadcast, unless I misheard, calling you manipulative, is absolutely disgraceful. Shame on Clive Soley. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I want to talk now to Maxwell Harrison, just after we take a look at what the leader of his party, Maxwell is a Kent County councillor for Sheppey for Reform UK, but his party leader, Nigel Farage, spoke to my colleague Alex Phillips earlier about the vacant role of US ambassador after the Mandelson scandal.
Somebody of that type who's got a good knowledge of current affairs, who knows about negotiation, and someone that can walk into the Oval Office and Trump can look him in the eye and say, I can do business with this guy.
Might that describe you?
Well, I don't think they'll offer the job to me, but I have to say it's a rather lovely building.
If they did, would you take it, or are you sort of committed to doing what you're doing back here?
What a question! I mean, if I was actually, I tell you what, you know, if I was Starmer, I would offer it to me, because if I accepted it, it would get me out of the way, wouldn't it?
No.
So I don't think I possibly could. No, but it would be very tempting in terms of lifestyle.
Yeah, who could he possibly have in mind? Well, Maxwell's with us, Maxwell Harrison, Kent County Councillor for Sheppey. Maxwell, thanks for your patience. We've had a lot to cram in to the first half an hour. First of all, what do you make of the Lord Mandelson scandal? Should it be Nigel Farage? It's not going to be really, is it?
I can't personally say it, but in fairness, I couldn't think of anyone better than fall out for the job. I mean, you know, Trump and him had a good relationship. We know that when J.D. Vance was in the Cotswolds, he and Nigel met. Conveniently, he didn't meet Kemi. So, no, I think he would do a terrific job in everything that Nigel does. I can't see Starmer having the political intuition to keep Nigel busy. You know, even
just speaking of his judgment there, I don't know if you saw the first half hour of the programme, but yes. Clive Soley there, Lord Soley, was chairman of the Labour Party back in the day, said this isn't about Starmer's judgment. I asked him, Clive, what planet are you on? I mean, was that a fair question, Maxwell?
Of course it is, and Lord Soley's answers and the way he treated you was disgraceful. It is a very valid question. You know, I mean, fundamentally, Mandelson, this is now his third resignation from government. Both the other times were very dubious in nature. He should have never been given the job. But you look at the calibre, I mean, Labour have got what? Around 400 MPs. He picks his closest circle to be, you know, Rachel Reeves, who lied about her CV, Jonathan Reynolds, who claimed he was a solicitor, you know, Angela Rayner.
Had to apologise to Parliament.
I know exactly. You know, he's got all these people together, none of whom have actually got real life experience. All of them who are just career politicians. And so, yes, we do have to look at it as the Prime Minister and actually the thought of him. Again, look at other people around him. Lord Ali, Lord Hermer, you know, Sue Gray. None of these people continue their work in good manner. They have scandal. The Prime Minister...
Sue Gray didn't have any scandal. It was simply because it wasn't a good fit.
Well, no, I think it was a bit scandalous, the fact that you can argue that her treatment and her intuition with Boris Johnson's whole inquiry thing was a bit sour towards the end. But no, these people, you know, these are people near dear to Keir Starmer. Starmer's got to go. He has simply just got to resign now. The public no longer have faith in him. Even a poll out in the last hour, find out now, Reform on 34%, Labour are dropping. So no, I'm not surprised about Mandelson's resignation. I'm just surprised, we're surprised anymore, that the Prime Minister thinks he can continue doing his job.
I just sort of thought, what were they thinking, putting him as U.S. ambassador? It was always doomed to fail. It was always going to go wrong. Listen, let's put that to the side for just 1 second and actually talk about Charlie Kirk. I know you and many people in Reform UK, many of our viewers and listeners as well, were big fans of Charlie Kirk. The President has paid tribute, Trump saying he will posthumously give him the Medal of Honour. I just wonder what your thoughts are, especially as we have this developing story about the shooter's ammunition engraved with pro-trans messages.
Look, I was devastated to see that video last night. I mean, I think it's absolutely heartbreaking. You know, whether it's the US or the UK, we should have free speech in our countries. And the idea that people are silenced, irrespective of whether it's right or left, this is now humanity versus insanity. And the idea that people are trying to go about and harm and hurt people just because of their opinions is, quite frankly, disgraceful. It's shocking. My thoughts and prayers go to his family and to his children. You know, again, a brilliant man. I'm a young individual in politics. I grew up in the last few years actually watching his videos, how he goes onto college campuses, challenges debate, welcomes debate, and actually hears other people's opinions, gives them that space. And the idea that people are trying to go about and silence free speech, whether it's in the US or the UK, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And if it actually is,
because I've seen you, Maxwell. I've seen you. You've been in the studio a number of times. You've been on my debate desk at the weekend. I've never seen you lose your temper. I've never seen you raise your voice to someone. I've never seen you do anything other than have good faith arguments, debates really, with people who you disagree with, including me. We've disagreed on a number of things. But the legacy, I think, of Charlie Kirk is to have that disagreement but still shake hands at the end and be reasonable people, and that's something I think we all need to remember.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think his legacy will go on. I think there will be now thousands upon thousands, if not even maybe hundreds of thousands of Charlie Kirks now whom welcome debate on college campuses in the US. That's what it's about. You and I, we can have a disagreement at the end of the day, but still be friends. You know, that's what it's supposed to be about. You know, politics is about ideas ultimately. It shouldn't be about the person. And yeah, I think it's actually incredibly sad what's happened. It's worrying, deeply unsettling, and you know, I hope it never happens again to anyone, irrespective of whether they're right wing or left wing.
Maxwell, thank you very much. That's Maxwell Harrison, Kent County Councillor for Sheppey, Reform UK, and I'll even buy Clive Soley a cup of tea the next time I see him around Parliament. What do you think of what Maxwell said there? 0344 499 1000. We're going to continue to debate all of this, and Michael Yaki is going to join us in a second. He's a former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi with all his thoughts on the Charlie Kirk assassination. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everyone who's been in touch. Lord Soley sadly lacks judgment, as does Keir Starmer, says Monica in Sheffield. Chris says, this Clive guy is a symptom of the problem with the government, totally out of touch, living in a delusional fantasy. Keir Starmer is dealing with Gaza well. What a joke. We're on the verge of World War III. Embarrassing deflection. They deny facts and are so out of touch with reality. Quite a few more like that as well. Thanks to Victoria, who says, respect for you for being so patient with Clive. I'm not sure I was that patient, to be honest. Shocking lack of engagement with the issues with Starmer's judgment. Men like this in their bubble of power, the problem with our politics today, says Victoria in Suffolk. Dave says Clive Soley is absolutely deluded. There we are. He said he wanted to hear what people thought about it, and that's what he thought. But he's welcome on the show again. As I said, I'll buy him a cup of tea the next time I see him or in and around the House of Lords. I'm there every now and again. I want to talk now about Charlie Kirk. The killer, of course, still at large, but the FBI say they've found a high-powered rifle and tracked the movements of the suspected gunman. An ammunition found at the scene of the assassination reportedly engraved with pro-transgender and anti-fascist messages. This is wording in support of trans and Antifa ideology, according to the Wall Street Journal. For those who, I'm sure we've all learned a lot more about Charlie Kirk today, but if you're sitting at home thinking, who is this guy? Well, this is just a clip of the Conservative commentator explaining what he does.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assault, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
Well, how fascinating in light of what has, and really stark and chilling, actually, given what we've learned in the last half an hour about this wording in support of trans and Antifa ideology. There's no suggestion, of course, that Antifa as a movement is behind this, but there is someone who certainly had wording in support of both Antifa ideology and trans ideology that engraved them on the bullet that was fired at Charlie Kirk. Well, shortly after the very sad announcement, President Trump spoke about his friend Charlie Kirk. This is what he said.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, just in the last few minutes, the FBI has given an update on the investigation into the shooter.
This morning I can tell you that we have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. The FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis. Now, I understand there are a lot of questions about motive. I assure you that all leads, tips are being fully investigated. The FBI has brought every resource to bear, and we will continue to do so throughout the course of this investigation.
An update there from the FBI on the assassination in Orem, Utah. Let's speak to Michael Yaki, who is a U.S. political analyst and former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. Michael, I know your political views would be very different, I'm sure, to Charlie Kirk, but actually the words of your president, I'm sure you agree with at least the real thrust of what President Trump was saying there.
No, I mean, I think that along with every American, I'm shocked and horrified by the political violence. If you recall, I mean, just last year, or maybe a couple of years ago, the husband of my former boss, Paul Pelosi, was attacked at their home by someone who was delusional and had very wrong ideas about Speaker Pelosi, and was there to trying to ambush her, and he got in the way. Earlier this year, 2 Democratic lawmakers were killed in their homes. A Pennsylvania governor, someone tried to set fire to his home while he and his family slept. And then, yesterday we had the terrible, tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk.
As well as the attempted assassination of President Trump.
President Trump, yeah. Exactly. I mean, you have a terrible legacy in my country of political violence as a means of settling political disputes. We've had 4 presidents assassinated, numerous cabinet secretaries, senators, congressmen, state and local officials in my own hometown of San Francisco. We have the terrible legacy of the mayor and supervisor. I was on the board of supervisors, not at the time, but having been killed by a handgun. I mean, this is an unfortunate legacy of our country, and we have to do something about it. And it's more than just offering thoughts and prayers, but of course we all do. Charlie Kirk did not deserve to die. His wife, his kids do not deserve to be without a father. His parents did not deserve to lose a son. His family and friends did not deserve to lose him. I disagree with Charlie Kirk vehemently, but our founders created something called an electoral process, a constitutional democracy, the First Amendment, all means for people to channel dispute and disagreement in a way that could be settled at the ballot box. And Charlie Kirk, not in addition to doing this college campus and stuff, let's not remember, he had a very good political organization. And what he did is he transformed and turned apathetic, young, college age, younger Americans, and turned that apathy into gold by making them getting them to the ballot box. And that helped President Trump, and why he was so close to the president over the past 8 years. So, that's a good thing. Getting people involved, I commend them for that. But I think that no right-thinking person will think that anyone, because of their political beliefs, should deserve that fate.
And whilst you may not have agreed with him, vehemently disagreed, you said, and that's absolutely fine, of course. And I love having people on my show who disagree with me, because then we have a debate and we work it out, sometimes quite animatedly, as we have actually in the last hour with another topic. But Michael, isn't there just a horrendous, tragic, dreadful irony here that Charlie Kirk's message was one of talking to people, having a debate about anything, encouraging people to come up to him, encouraging people on college campuses, the minds and leaders of tomorrow, and many said he was a leader of tomorrow, to say, let's have a discussion. Okay, we disagree, but let's have a discussion and try to work it out through words rather than through guns, through violence, and he loses his life through political violence. It's horrendous.
I know. I mean, I agree with you 100%, Peter. All great political activists, left or right, whether it's a Martin Luther King Jr., whether it's a Bobby Kennedy, whether in this case it's a Charlie Kirk. There are people who reached out, went across borders of where people thought they should be going to look and to work, to talk to people all the time. Disagreement cannot be settled at the end of the barrel of a gun. And what I think needs to happen in our country is it's more than thoughts and prayers. It is about a constructive dialogue about what role social media plays, what role people in podcasts, what role elected officials, what role community activists play in saying there's a line that cannot be crossed. We can disagree vehemently. I can hate what you say. I could even hate you, as in terms of political speech, but I'm not going to kill you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to harm you. That is something that we're supposed to settle through peaceful means. And what's unfortunate is that people on both sides, and I do mean on both sides of the political spectrum in the United States, harken back to our birth, which was born in violence, born in guns, in a revolution, and go, well, see, that's how it was settled. But they forget about the fact that we created a system of government that was designed to avoid that,
to avoid all that
going forward. Yeah.
Very, very wise words there from Michael Yaki, the Democrat commentator. We will have a Republican commentator on a little bit later on as well. For the moment, Michael, thank you as always. Michael Yaki, U.S. political analyst and former senior advisor to Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. What are your views on all of this? What are your memories of Charlie Kirk? 0344 499 1000. We'll take your calls in just a minute here on Talk.
because unfortunately this morning we're not going to be having a laugh because we're going to be thinking about what happened last night, which was so horrible. I don't even know where to begin. Charlie Kirk, a right-wing polemicist, I suppose you might say, a bloke who started Turning Point in America, a guy who was, to all intents and purposes, just a very interesting thinker, a very interesting, argumentative type of person.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's hear some voice notes, firstly from Daryl.
I think you're absolutely right about Keir Starmer. He's not only has he shown bad judgment, he's shown complete incompetence, not only in who he selects for various roles, but also on his policies. He's U-turned on pretty much most of them, and the ones that he hasn't U-turned on have just fell flat on their face anyway. The guy is an absolute abject failure in every sense of the word as our Prime Minister of the country. He's not fit for purpose.
Thank you. Let's hear from Alan.
It's that bloke you had just on just now. What an absolute, well, I won't swear. People like that, you're wasting your time speaking to because they can't understand your point of view. You may as well talk a brick wall. As you say, deflection, talk about Russia, the Third World War. What? I'm sorry, every day we hear this. We hear this for the last 50 years. Russia are broken as a military unit. Ukraine have smashed them anyway. It's just probing. We do it with them. We send ships and planes. They do it. This has gone for years. So, as you say, deflection. The main story, Mandelson, crooked, Starmer, poor judgment as per usual.
Alan, thank you for that. Thanks also to Robert Payne on Twitter, who says that Lord Solly fellow is trying to dominate, deflect and distract from the feelings of the Prime Minister in a cult-like manner. So we're not supposed to mention Mandelson's mores. There could be World War III. What if there's an asteroid impact? Robert, what if there is an asteroid impact and we're ignoring it because we're too busy talking about Lord Mandelson? I think we'll be fine on the old World War III side of things. Call me a relentless, glass half full kind of person. Andy has been in touch on Mandelson and Solly as well.
What you was talking about basically was Starmer's judgment, and I'm worried about that. He's basically supposed to be in charge of our country, and he's got the worst judgment that I've ever known about anybody. What kind of trouble is he going to get us into, Starmer?
Thank you very much indeed for that. And on this as well, let's talk to Adrian in Somerset. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Adrian, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, how you doing? Yeah, it's this judge of character that he had. Now, I don't know the ins and outs, and I'm not going to say any names, but didn't he come up in bad light when he was head of the CPS as well?
Keir Starmer, do you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think there are any allegations about Keir Starmer at the CPS necessarily. I think he's generally judged to have done a reasonably good job, but certainly his political judgment, I think, in the last 14 months and beyond that hasn't been any good at all, Adrian. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it has been as well, especially with Angela Rayner and that. Like, and it was the same as well with Donald Trump when he came over, and they were stood outside wherever it was, and he was stood there like a naughty schoolboy in front of the headmaster waiting to go in.
Yeah,
and he didn't know how to present himself. He didn't stand there proud of, look, this is my nation and you're my visitor. This is my country. He just stood there like. He just stood there like he didn't know how to present himself or what to do.
Well, and let's see what he does next week, Adrian, because we've got that state visit coming up as well. Listen, thanks for your... Oh, sorry, you had another thought, Adrian, had you?
Yeah, it's just how Trump and that, like, it's as if he hires people who are his friends. you know.
And you can't just do that. You can't just do that. You've got to have the best people for the job. Yeah.
It was like how Trump was saying about the mayor of London and that terrible job, terrible person. This, and he even turned around and said, well, "Excuse me, Mr. Trump, but that's my friend you're talking about."
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't think Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan are going to go on a spa weekend anytime soon. Get their face packs and massages. Don't think so. Somehow, Nigel is in London. Let's finish the hour with a thought on Charlie Kirk. Nigel, just a couple of minutes before we go to the news, so just briefly, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, good afternoon. I haven't spoken to you, but
it's been a little while, Nigel. Yeah.
I've been back in the States where we live as well, so I've come back.
Okay.
I met Charlie Kirk a couple of years ago in California.
Right.
And of course, I want to expand the argument, because Charlie Kirk, one could argue, has the same sort of conversational skills that Douglas Murray has. And Douglas Murray also is an outspoken person, and he makes a very good argument. But you know what's interesting for me, Peter, and you know this, we're in a similar business, is that there was an MP for the Tory party who was never offered protection by the Met Police, a guy called Mike Freer, who often received death threats, and he just stood down. I think the difficulty that we have in this country is there isn't a perception of the threat being able to protect certain people enough. And I think this is really, really important that the Met Police, they work with a department of the Home Office called RAS. That's Royalty.
Yeah, I've worked with the very good officers of RAS, the Royalty and Specialist Protection branch myself, Nigel, and there are many more politicians who are at a huge amount of risk. We need to find a way to have a better conversation, Nigel. We just need to find a way to stamp out political violence.
Well, I think the most important thing for me to gain from this terrible assassination is I'm of an age where I used to be able to have a conversation, a debate, an argument, a chat, without fisticuffs, without stabbings, and without shootings. What is wrong with certain people that they try and shut people down either temporarily or permanently?
Nigel, we've got to go to the news, but thank you.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, this is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. There are two really big stories we're talking about today. One is the sacking of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to America. This is just days before Donald Trump comes across the Atlantic for a state visit. Keir Starmer has lost both his Deputy Prime Minister and his ambassador to Washington in the same 10-day period. We're also going to hear this hour who the shortlist is, or who's on the shortlist for Labour Deputy Leader. We'll bring you that. We'll talk about Ireland and the fact that it has said it doesn't want to be in Eurovision if Israel is. I rule central. We also have some breaking news, and that is that the FBI is asking for the public's help identifying a person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. The picture's on the screen right now. This is the FBI in Salt Lake City in Utah. They're saying we are asking for the public's help identifying this person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. 1-800-CALL FBI, and they've addressed there as well. This is someone who is wearing a cap and is pictured as well with apparently some form of a black t-shirt, but some form of flag of some description on there. It looks as if there's perhaps a gun on there. There's some sort of design on it. It's very blurry, so I don't want to be definitive about that, but it's a person wearing sunglasses and a cap. I can't make that out, so I'm just not going to be definitive about that, but there is some form of American flag on there certainly as well. It's a man wearing a black t-shirt with a design on it and jeans as well. So the officials releasing that image of the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination. We will bring that, any developments in that, of course. It's moving all the time. We've been hearing in the last hour as well that the casings, the actual bullet that was used, had some form of Antifa message, some sort of pro-trans message actually engraved into it, which is just another sick detail of this horrendous assassination of a very promising young man, an advocate of free speech, a possible future leader or senior person, certainly very close to Donald Trump, and someone who had really mobilised the youth base in universities by having honest conversations. Yes, with a slant. He was on the right, nothing wrong with that. He had a very, very strong view, but meeting people halfway, debating with them, not shouting them down, not saying they're evil, terrible people, actually having a reasonable debate, which is what I think we do every day here on Talk, because we are the home of free speech, and that legacy of Charlie Kirk is something we're going to think about very, very carefully as time goes on. Whether it's Peter Mandelson, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's Ireland and its ridiculous decision about Eurovision, whether it's something you hear about in the sport, whatever you want to talk about, give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note. We've had plenty of those in the last hour. Let's have more in this hour too. 0344 499 1000. You can send me a text message via WhatsApp on that number as well, or give me a ring on that number. Peter in Suffolk says, what about Starmer spinning U-turns? Wednesday morning, full confidence in Peter Mandelson. Thursday morning, he's fired. Another Peter, this time from Croydon, says, Mandelson's interview with Harry Cole, so similar to Rayner's with Beth Rigby, both playing the victim after being rumbled and trying to squirm their way out of it, says Peter. Well, earlier today, the Foreign Office Minister Stephen Doughty explained the reasons behind the sacking of Lord Mandelson.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States. The emails show, Mr. Speaker, that the depth and extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. In particular, Mr. Speaker, Lord Mandelson's suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction was wrongful and should be challenged is new information. And in light of that, Mr. Speaker, and mindful, as we all are, of the victims of Epstein's appalling crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect.
But yesterday, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, expressed his support for the former U.S. ambassador. Starmer insisted he had confidence in Peter Mandelson.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Absolutely. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He's now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
Well, let's just take a moment to recall Lord Mandelson's grovelling apology regarding his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. He spoke to Harry Cole. Harry's now based in Washington, the editor-at-large of The Sun. He also has a new programme called Harry Cole Saves the West. This is what Lord Mandelson said.
One, I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done. And I regret very much that I fell for his lies. I fell and accepted assurances that he had given me about his indictment, his original criminal case in Florida. Like very many people, I took at face value what he said. With hindsight, with fresh information, many years later, we realized that we had been wrong to believe him. He's a charismatic criminal liar, we now see. And I regret very much indeed, I felt it like an albatross around my neck since his death in 2018 or 19 when it was. I feel a tremendous sense of regret, not only that I met him in the first place, but that I continued the association and I took at face value the lies that he fed me and many others.
I speak to Philip T. Reeker. He's a former US ambassador to the UK, former US diplomat who served as Assistant Secretary of State in the Biden administration. Philip, thank you for joining us. Presumably, a lot of Washington is just laughing at the incompetence, the ridiculousness of this. Okay, it's a very, very serious issue involving a paedophile, but this is just ludicrous, isn't it? What is the view from where you sit?
Well, thanks for having me, Peter. It's good to join you again. Look, I think this is all very unfortunate in terms of the diplomacy, the timing. Obviously, Lord Mandelson, I think, had done a very strong job as ambassador in Washington, helping to create the relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Starmer, the positive visits they've had, the U.S.-UK trade deal, and the work that's been going on with that, and the agenda that he's pressed in so many of his talks in Washington and across the country, across the United States, about the need to work on tech, particularly AI. And that was all, I think, coming to a very nice showcase with the upcoming state visit, as you mentioned, next week. So this is unfortunate. I don't think it's something people are particularly laughing about. I do know that the UK embassy is under very good leadership with James Roscoe stepping up. He's, of course, the deputy head of mission and will now be the chargé d'affaires, that is the man in charge at the UK embassy in Washington, the UK mission across the United States. Extremely good diplomat, great experience, including key positions in London, going back with other prime ministers, with the royal household, and at the United Nations. So I think all of this unfortunate. It shows just how damning this Epstein situation is for many people involved. And now we just need to move ahead with the important things on the agenda.
It's important to move ahead, as you say. Certainly there will be many, many important discussions that happen over the course of the pomp and ceremony of the state visit, but also those very important discussions as well. I just wonder, from a judgment perspective, whether those in Washington, whether those in the diplomatic community are questioning, at the very least, Lord Mandelson's judgment, if not the Prime Minister himself, because we have a Prime Minister here in the UK who within 10 days has lost a Deputy Prime Minister and an ambassador to Washington on the eve of a state visit by the United States President. Both of those things are incredibly serious.
The calendar certainly has sort of merged at a particular point at the very end of summer. And as people say, August is not always a quiet month. And as we move into September, we can see that at hand. I mean, everybody's got to make their own judgment of the judgment in this particular case.
What's your judgment?
Look, I think it's very unfortunate to see how many people Epstein was surrounded by, prominent people. We've seen continuing new information emerging about that case of just the level in which he circulated, and those who I'm sure quite genuinely regret their relationship with him, the charisma, the money, the other things that drew people to him, I suspect, in hindsight, of course, look very different, understanding the crimes that he committed. And so I think what we have to focus on as diplomats anyway is moving ahead with the key events coming up and the strong relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, often called the special relationship, of course. And I think we can do that. I think on both sides there'll be a desire to do that. I know that President Trump is looking forward to this visit, holds King Charles in very high esteem.
Yeah.
There'll be an opportunity to celebrate that, just as we're on the cusp of the 250th anniversary of our own, shall we say, separation from.
Yes, we're still very annoyed about that, but we wish you well. Philip, I just wonder, just in regard to that special relationship, because there's something in that, isn't there? Because there are real fissures, are there not, between Keir Starmer, his view on Gaza, although of course President Trump has said recently about the humanitarian cost there and how important it is to remember that, and that he's asked for Israel to be more considerate of the humanitarian side of things. We know as well on Ukraine there have been real differences, and President Trump has been, in the most generous interpretation, unpredictable in regard to his relationship with President Putin, with President Zelensky. It's been up and down. I just wonder, I mean, I'm sure you'll say the special relationship will endure and it'll all be fine, but it seems to me that the special relationship, certainly under the current UK and US administration, has been under quite a lot of pressure, and perhaps more than it has been for a while.
Well, look, when I was Assistant Secretary for Europe, and that was actually during the first Trump administration, for most of that time as a career diplomat, I carried out the transition and stayed working for Secretary Blinken for the first 6 months, and then he sent me to London for a year to be the interim ambassador there. We had strong differences. Let's remember, some of the differences we had with the Boris Johnson government and others, and then, of course, over Afghanistan and other issues when I was actually there in Nine Elms representing the United States, and again, working very closely even when we had difficult policy differences. I think, Prime Minister Starmer has done a very good job of establishing a trust and relationship with President Trump, even where there are policy differences, but they've understand how to nuance those and how it's important to deal with the whole range of issues, including the economic and trade issues that have been really critical for the futures of both our countries, and the broader transatlantic relationship as well. You see the UK working better with the EU, its geographic neighbors, of course, historical allies as well. And so these things, they can get complicated, and they come to heads like this sometimes, and we rally round. And, as you said, we've been through a lot before. We'll get through this, and I think it's important that we do.
Speaking of going through things and tough times, Philip, your country is having a really tough time at the moment in regard to the horrendous assassination of Charlie Kirk, who's someone a lot of our viewers and listeners listened to, respected, heard, and often agreed with politically. But whether you agreed with him or not, I think what we can agree is that he was someone who really spoke up for free speech, which is a value both our countries hold very, very dear.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute tragedy, and my sympathies join, I think, just about everyone in my country, but yours and around the world, in decrying this tragedy, and the condolences to his young family. He was a young man, a very dynamic man, While we don't know all the details, motivations, other things of this assassination, that's still ongoing. I saw your latest updates from the FBI's announcements. We just have to step back and say, look, we have the ability to have differences in discourse, particularly in our democracies where free speech is important. You know, we've had other examples. Earlier this year, we had in the state of Minnesota, leaders, state representatives from the Minnesota state government who were gunned down in their homes. A representative and her husband killed, shot dead. They were from the left side in that discussion, and also, you know, strongly believed in the importance of the democratic system. And, you know, there's just too much of that. We've got to tone this down and be able to have differences, even in this world of social media, where we can talk about things rationally, respect each other, and certainly keep violence like this out of it.
Philip, you're a class act. Maybe you should be our next ambassador to Washington. That would be a left field, but I think a very good appointment. Philip, thank you. Philip T. Rieker there, former U.S. ambassador to the UK, former U.S. diplomat. He served as Assistant Secretary of State for 2 years, and he's a partner in DGA, Albright Stonebridge Group of Advisors as well. Let's take a call from Michael in Liverpool. 0344 499 1000 is the number Michael has called. Michael, what would you like to say?
I'm just on the Peter Mandelson thing. I this thing with Keir Starmer, I don't think he makes judgments himself, and I think in the back room, Morgan McSweeney has made that decision.
And we know there's someone else who's made the decision as well. We know Tony Blair's made that decision. He said he's rung up Keir or Morgan McSweeney or both of them, and he said, look, you know, I think he'd be a really good ambassador to Washington. Keir Starmer has forgotten about the 2 times that he had to resign in disgrace previously, Mandelson, and he's appointed him.
I don't even think he's forgotten about the times he's resigned. I just think he's took the judgment of someone else and not really looked into it himself.
Yeah.
I think Morgan McSweeney needs to be the one that needs to be brought to Parliament to ask the questions, because I think he knew a lot more than what Keir Starmer did, and obviously that information that he knew has never got to the forefront.
Well, there's a load of questions about who knew what when, and stuff that was in the public domain as well, Michael, about the fact that that Mandelson was living in Epstein's flat when Epstein was in prison. I mean, I don't know about you, but Michael, if you had a mate who was convicted of sex trafficking and paedophilia, you may think, okay, they're innocent. They tell me they're innocent, but if you're in a sensitive position, you don't stay in their flat.
You don't go anywhere near the flat.
Yeah.
You don't even send him a birthday card, and you don't even send him an email or a text message. You just in them positions, you just can't afford to for your own what's his name. But obviously, these people that live up high above everyone else.
Well, they just think they'll never be caught, Michael, and that's the way of it. They think this will never be in the public domain. They can do whatever they like.
Well, that's why I think Morgan McSweeney needs a lot to answer to, because he's the one who's been keeping a lot of information away from everyone else.
We don't know that for sure, Michael, but certainly, listen, thanks for your call. I really appreciate that. I'm sure there's no suggestion Morgan McSweeney has done anything illegal or anything wrong, but certainly he is someone who's in a position of scrutiny, and we'll continue to scrutinise him, and our viewers and listeners will do so too. If you want to get your voice on the air, 0344 499 1000. Mike in Wigan says the toxic left don't do debate. And Margaret in Birmingham says the wheels have finally come off Starmer's wagon. He was told about Mandelson and chose to ignore it. What an incompetent Prime Minister. Harry Cole saves Great Britain, says Margaret in Birmingham. P.S. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Crystal says, sadly, Peter, Charlie was right. I've heard people say things like, today is one day closer to Trump's death. I've heard people wish violence rather than conversation. These aren't just people saying this, but people I love. We are turning into the thing many of us were taught to never be. It hurts my heart, says Crystal. Crystal, what a heartfelt message. I'm really sorry to hear you feel that way. I can understand why you feel that way, and I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people are really worried about the toxicity of debate, about the toxicity of our society. Thank you, Crystal. That's really made me think. Hannah in Telford says, I'm devastated by the murder of Charlie Kirk. I didn't always agree with his view, but I had massive respect for how he tried to debate and create open discussion. I'm sickened by the reaction by the extreme leftists, both from social media and media channels and some journalists. I fear this is the beginning of some dark, dark times ahead. I'm not sure what the solution is, says Hannah in Telford. Hannah, I know exactly who you're referring to. I've seen some of those things on social media too, and they are disgraceful. I'm not going to name any names, but if you go on social media, you will see some of the people who are pretty senior broadcasters in this country who should know better than to write some of the stuff they've been writing online today about Charlie Kirk, let me tell you. Richard says, while I agree Starmer is useless, I'm absolutely scared of who would come next. I have 5 very worrying words for you. David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister. I have 4 very funny words for you, Richard. David Lammy, celebrity mastermind. Heather says, what you asked Lord Soley is the same as Charlie Kirk did when he was debating with students when he was assassinated at a college campus yesterday. Charlie showed the students how to have a debate and what freedom of speech is all about. It's okay to agree and disagree and respect each other's views and opinions. Conscious is optional. Views, of course, can change. Another person says Starmer might ask Prince Andrew to be the next US ambassador. He might fit the criteria. Do you know what? I was kind of thinking that, actually. I was thinking of the Newsnight interview when I saw Mandelson sitting there looking a bit shifty, a bit sort of, oh, I know I've done something wrong here, but actually Epstein, was he that bad a guy? Yes, he was. He was a sex trafficker and a paedophile, and anyone who calls Ghislaine Maxwell his girlfriend or a socialite, she was a sex trafficker, she's a paedophile, she is a terrible person. Never excuse what she does either. Don't just say she was his girlfriend or a socialite. She is a nasty, evil person and is rightly in prison. Matt, talking about Peter Mandelson, says, we knew Mandelson had a close relationship with Epstein when he was appointed ambassador. This is really about vetting. As ambassador, he must have been subject to the highest possible level of vetting. How can he have been granted that vetting level when there was always the possibility of someone having a compromising photo of him on the island? It could have been used to unduly influence Mandelson at any time. Starmer was insane to appoint him. This was always going to happen, says Matt in Bromley. Matt, I can't disagree with the word you're saying, especially as we now know, as we've been reporting this afternoon, that security advice was ignored. The Prime Minister ignored security advice on Peter Mandelson. We'll talk more about this as the show goes on, but I want to talk about Gary Lineker, who uses his best presenter win at the National Television Awards to talk about what else, the anti-Semitism row that saw him leave the BBC after he retweeted an image of Jews as rats. Spoiler alert, Jews as rats? Yeah, that's pretty anti-Semitic there, Gary. So I just don't think you're a great guy at all. In fact, I think you're a bit of a scumbag. Stay with us here on Talk.
Because unfortunately this morning we're not going to be having a laugh because we're going to be thinking about what happened last night, which was so horrible. I don't even know where to begin. Charlie Kirk, a right-wing polemicist, I suppose you might say, a bloke who started Turning Point in America, a guy who was, to all intents and purposes, just a very interesting thinker, a very interesting you know, argumentative type of person.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Gary Lineker is in the headlines again at the National Television Awards last night. This is voted for by the public. He was awarded the Best Presenter Award. This is something that for something like 23 years has gone to Ant and Dec together. But last night it went to Gary Lineker. He, of course, is very controversial. He left the BBC under a storm of criticism for many things. He'd had lots of political views, not least on the Middle East. Specifically, the thing that annoyed me more than anything, and he has said himself led to his defenestration from the BBC, was when he retweeted an anti-Semitic trope. This was a rat image, and of course displaying, comparing Jewish people to rats is something that the Nazis did, and as a long time anti-Semitic trope. So this is what Gary Lineker said last night.
I think it demonstrates that perhaps it's okay sometimes for us to use our platform to speak up on behalf of those who have no voice. So thank you. It means the world. Thank you very much.
Gary Lineker last night. Personally, I prefer this speech he posted shortly after he was stood down from the BBC duties for an Instagram post which had that anti-Semitic trope in it.
Last week I shared a post here on Instagram that contained an emoji that has awful connotations. Unfortunately, I did not see the emoji. If I had, I would never ever have shared it. The minute I was made aware, I quickly deleted the post and went on to make an apology. I would like once again to say I'm sorry unreservedly for the hurt and upset caused. It was a genuine mistake and oversight, but I should have been more diligent. I know that.
That was Gary Lineker. He has lots of things to say about all sorts of things, about people who have no voice, about the Middle East, about how awful Israel is, about the attacks on Gaza. One thing he had absolutely nothing to say about, he didn't tweet a single thing about, was the Hamas terrorist attacks on the 7th of October. Nothing to say about that, nothing to say about all the children he says he cares about who were murdered brutally by Hamas terrorists. Well, Jake Wallace-Simons, the author and columnist, is with me now. Jake, what's your reaction to what Gary Lineker has been saying?
Well, of course, you're right. On October the 7th itself, he did tweet something. He tweeted Super Spurs atop the league, is what he tweeted. But, you know, I mean, that speech that he made in so graciously receiving the award, in that he said that he was happy to use his platform for people who have no voice. Now, he's not using his platform for people who have no voice. He's using his platform for Hamas, I'm afraid, because he's spreading their propaganda and in so doing contributing towards the brainwashing of millions of people who look up to him and who watch him on Match of the Day and elsewhere. And I can't help but think that if Gary Lineker had been sacked from the BBC for posting a rat emoji in a post about black people, or about Muslim people, or about trans people,
or gay people, or any other minority,
he would not be able to then accept that award and pose as a kind of champion of freedom for the underdog and free speech. He's used his platform to ventriloquise anti-Semitism, to ventriloquise jihadi propaganda. That's why he was sacked, and that's why he should not be lauded by a brainwashed society in this way. But that's the reality today, I'm afraid.
What do you think it says that thousands of people decided to vote for him? They may think he's a wonderful presenter, they may think he's a great presenter of Match of the Day, and he's a talented broadcaster, there's no doubt about that. But I tend to not separate people's views from who they are, and especially if I was voting for someone to be a presenter. What does it say about the people who voted for him?
Well, frankly, I think that these days it takes quite a special person with a very intact moral compass and an inquiring mind to stand against the volume of pro-Hamas propaganda that we're seeing, not just across social media and not just in the legacy media, but also coming from Downing Street, frankly, that has been putting no pressure at all, as far as I can see, on Hamas to release the hostages that it took and end the war, but all the pressure and recrimination upon Israel. And for most people, they're not specialists in the Middle East. They don't have the time or the inclination to read deeply into it. They just go with the prevailing view of what their friends think, what social media thinks, what everybody tends to think, and don't question it. And it's that kind of brainwashing that unfortunately Gary Lineker probably was subjected to and didn't have the moral capacity to resist, and then became an amplification facility for that, and added to this snowball effect of everybody just thinking that, you know, that the Palestinians are right, Hamas are the victims here. That's what we've come to believe, and the Israeli war machine is the cause of all ills in the world. You know, I went on the march against anti-Semitism on Sunday and gave a rather nerve-wracking speech to 70,000 people there, and it was amazing because as we walked down the main road from Trafalgar Square to Parliament Square, with a sea of Union flags and a few Israeli flags among them, with 70,000 people behaving impeccably. Yes, they were angry about anti-Semitism, but the police were facing away from us to protect us, not the other way around. The police heard just two words from the demonstrators, thank and you, the entire afternoon. And looking at people, shoppers, seeing us go by, there was a look of total bewilderment, not hostility so much, but bewilderment that you're actually holding the Israeli flag and you've got the Union flag, and what is this? They're not used to it. People just live in this world where the side of the righteous has the Palestinian flag, and fascism and Nazism is the Israeli flag, and they don't know any better, and they've never seen anybody else disagree with it. And so I think that really explains why so many people voted for Gary Lineker, thinking that he's doing the right thing, speaking up for the voices, rather than articulating anti-Semitism and articulating Hamas propaganda, as you and I know he was doing.
And one thing the government have actually kept under, well, not quite under wraps, it is public, but one thing you might be forgiven for having missed was a letter from the outgoing Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, to Sarah Champion MP, who said, essentially putting forward the thesis that there was genocide in Gaza. And actually our government doesn't believe that. It doesn't believe there is genocide in Gaza. You could have very easily missed that, actually, because it's not something you hear Keir Starmer saying very often.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world where lies are assumed to be the truth, I'm afraid. You know, George Orwell wrote in his famous essay about anti-Semitism that one of the marks of anti-Semitism is the capacity to believe things that could not possibly be true. And you can see that nowhere more clearly than in the current conflict, where people believe that there's a famine, even though any pictures of starving kids have been revealed to be showing people with congenital health problems, not starvation. They believe there's a genocide, even though 2.4 million Gazans remain alive, and Israel could have wiped them out in an afternoon with its nuclear
Yes, on one side Israel is this dreadful evil war machine that wants to eliminate the Gazans, on the other side they haven't done it. So
yes, and on the one hand
there's a disconnection.
On the one hand it's starving Gaza, on the other hand it's feeding Gaza on Israeli taxpayers' money with a huge humanitarian operation. That people can't see the contradiction there, and so I think that here as well the UK government was forced to look at the evidence and forced to conclude, as is obvious, there's no genocide there. There's no concentration camps, there's no gas chambers, there's no lining people up against the wall and shooting them en masse.
We know why they use that word, don't we? We know why they use that word.
What, the genocide word? Because it flips it. Because that's what describes the genocide against the Jews in the 1940s, and was coined then. And so it's a grotesque sort of gleeful inversion of what the Jews suffered. But yes, you know, but the UK government was forced to say there was no genocide, looking at the facts, and yet everybody still believes that there is. That's the mark of propaganda.
I think this is maybe the right point in the programme to explain where I've been for the last few days. The reason I wasn't on the anti-Semitism march on Sunday, which I would have very happily have gone on and would have loved to have listened to what you said, although I've seen clips of it online. I've actually been in Israel, and I was on a press trip there from Sunday to, in fact, the early hours of this morning, and I went to a number of fascinating and very heart-wrenching sites, including the kibbutz, a place called Kibbutz near Oz, where the Bibas family live. That just unspeakable tragedy that occurred, the taking of hostages, the fact that children, a 4-year-old and a baby, were murdered by strangulation by Hamas terrorists. That's the kind of things that Hamas do. I was at their house, I saw what happened there. I talked to a woman who, like many hundreds of others, had been evacuated from there, and also went to the site of the Nova Music Festival, which was a tremendously moving experience. I also went to Hostage Square in Tel Aviv and many other places, the Golan Heights and other places as well, hearing briefings, hearing from people there, talking about the situation there. And really it is one thing, I mean, there are many things that stood out from what I heard, but just the pressure that the Israeli people are under, the debate that's going on actually about the war, the hostility to Netanyahu, the fact that so many people forget that Israel is a democracy. Lots of people have different views. They don't all think, you know, people saying, well, Israel thinks this, Israel does this. Well, the Israeli government and military might do one thing, but it's the same thing as me saying, well, Jake, you're from the UK, you must obviously agree with every single thing Keir Starmer says. And people forget that democracy is there, that disagreement is there. One of the protest that I saw actually was an anti-Netanyahu protest by some people there. They have the freedom to do that, and the 22 countries in the Arab world that aren't democracies, they don't have the freedom to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish that all the viewers, and frankly everybody in Britain and in the Western world, would have the opportunity that you had to go to Israel and see what it is like, see how much freedom of speech there is there, just see how it's a standard, well, not standard, it's a unique, but it's a Western-style liberal democracy. There are a huge Pride March, the only one in the Middle East, obviously.
Well, actually,
once a year in Tel Aviv.
In Tel Aviv, I was walking out on the beach. Actually, I saw two men holding hands, and I thought, where else in the Middle East would you see that?
Well, the thing is, you will see, if you walk along Tel Aviv beach, you will see that, two men holding hands. You'll see women in bikinis. You will see religious Muslim women in robes, in the hijab, walking along as well. If you stay there long enough, you will hear the call to prayer from a nearby mosque. You will see Jews going to synagogue. You'll see Christians going to pray in their churches as well. This is what Israel is. And of course, it's got villains, like every country has villains. It's got dark sides, it's got nasty people in it. But it's a democracy. No democracy is perfect. We all have our own checkered histories as democracies. But people, unfortunately, under the influence of propaganda, are subjected to the worst things that Israel ever does and all the failures that it makes. And we're kind of led to characterise the whole country by that.
Yeah.
And it's like taking, you know, all the errors that we've made, you know, the civilians that we've killed in war, and saying that means that the UK is fundamentally a genocidal nation.
Yeah,
and we're not. We're a democracy just like Israel is. You know?
I just need to ask you briefly, we've gone way over time, I do apologise, but I love chatting to you, Jake, just about RTE, the Irish broadcaster announcing it will not take part in the 2026 Eurovision Song Contest if the participation of Israel goes ahead. The Spanish culture minister has joined Slovenia in threatening to withdraw them as well.
Yeah, well, Slovenia and Spain actually. Spain was the one that really caught my eye, because the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez as well actually made this statement, which I'm still trying to get my head round, which is that it's a shame that Spain doesn't have nuclear bombs, because then it would be able to stop Israel's campaign in Gaza. Unbelievable statement that just hasn't had enough airtime, I think, so I'm glad to draw attention to it. But I think that this, you know, the Eurovision Song Contest in one way is a nothing, you know, it's not a big deal, it's not a matter of great import. And on the other hand, it's indicative of the everyday hostility that Jews and Israelis face around the world. It feels to many Jews, and of course Israelis, that the walls are closing in.
Yeah.
You know, Jews who previously being Jewish was only part of their identity, you know, they're British or whatever, and they've got a job and they're a father.
That's the only thing some people see now.
Now people are being forced to be Jewish first in a way they never were before. I mean, you've had, you know, in the last week or two, feces smeared on Jewish places of worship and facilities. I mean, and the Eurovision Song Contest is an example of that. People who see themselves as the most virtuous anti-racist people in history are articulating the oldest hatred and the oldest racism towards Jews.
Jake, as always, thank you. I want to talk to you properly about your book that I know is coming out in a few weeks too. Let's do that on another occasion. That's Jake Wallace-Simons, author and columnist, and his book is out on the 2nd of October, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. We will talk about that book in more depth on another occasion. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So, in the last few minutes, Bel Ribeiro Addy who's the Labour backbencher, I've heard of her a bit, she's sort of on the left of the Labour Party, says she has not secured the required 80 MP nominations to make it to the second round of the deputy leadership contest. We think, we're not sure, we're confirming this, but we think that Bridget Phillips, the Education Secretary, and Lucy Powell, who's just been sacked as the leader of the House of Commons, she's the one who, of course, said that it was dog whistle politics to talk about the rape gangs inquiry. We think the two of them are through for this bit of the deputy leadership contest. They need to secure a lot more nominations before they go forward to the ballot. I know you're as excited about it as I am, but this is what we think. Bridget Phillips and Lucy Powell are through, but we're just double checking that. But we know that Bel Ribeiro Addy is not through. She says she hasn't got the required 80 MP nominations. And earlier today, Emily Thornberry, very, very sadly, deeply sadly, told us that she hadn't got through either. So thoughts and prayers. John in Glasgow has been in touch on Peter Mandelson.
Isn't it incredible how these people just still come out and defend their own? They just don't see things logically, and they'll still come out and defend and defend and defend.
Thank you, John. Patrick's been in touch as well.
You weren't even slightly unfair to Lord Soley. The only answer he should have given you to that question was something like, Peter, I sometimes think that you are unfair to the Prime Minister, but what you have to realise is he makes decisions, difficult decisions, on a daily basis, and sometimes, and this is probably one of those examples, he gets it wrong. He could have said that and would have been all right. If Labour had stopped trying to convince us that black was white and up is down and night is day, and actually told the truth for once, we'd probably like them a little bit better.
Patrick, thanks for that. I really appreciate that. Really, really good voice note. Kelvin's been in touch as well.
No, you weren't unkind to Clive What's-His-Face. He went rambling on like all Labour and lefties do, trying to, override you, talk over top of you so you can't say anything bad, because they don't like the truth. That's the problem with these lot. So he's just looking for excuses, and blaming Russia and everything else now to try and cover up the big stories. Ridiculous. Like I say, this is Labour all over.
Thanks, Kelvin. It being Russia's fault does make a slight difference from everything being Israel's fault. Steve's been in touch from Norwich on Mandelson. Steve, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, the first thing is that the Mandelson shakedown, eventually the man has got it coming and he's got what he deserves. And I think that really the fact that we've got the President of the United States coming over for a state dinner next week, and we haven't got any representative apart from Starmer. I think Nigel should be invited to join the dinner because
that's right. That's right. He's not at the dinner now. There's an extra place. Maybe we could bring in Nigel. Do you think he'd be a good U.S. ambassador?
He would be brilliant, but I think he's got other things on his mind at the moment.
Well, I think there might be an even bigger job he's thinking about, Steve.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Yeah, and I can't wait for the day when it comes. And unfortunately, it's a long way off, another 3 or 4 years of this. I mean, my constitution won't take it, I don't think. Not every day, a resignation, and I've never seen politics like this, and I'm nearly 80 years old.
I know what you mean, Steve. Well, hang in there because patience is a virtue, which I'm afraid I often don't have. But thank you, Steve. Really good call. Appreciate that. Ian's in Bridgend and wants to talk about Charlie Kirk. Ian, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hello, Peter. Yes. Just to say, generally, it seems to be very worrying times for those of us who consider ourselves to be on the right, what with obviously Charlie Kirk now, and then recently with those AFD politicians, all very strangely dying. I'm just very worried now about this big march that's coming up on Saturday, if the kind and considerate left will be striking out there as well.
Well, let's hope that the march on Saturday is totally peaceful, that people make their point, and if there are counter demonstrators, that they make their point all within the law. We've seen that most of the time, the vast majority of the time, certainly when it's come to those protests in regard to migrant hotels. There have been a few arrests, fewer than 20, I think, from all the different protests in the last month or so. So let's hope that happens and people can take Charlie Kirk's example and make their point reasonably, legally and straightforwardly.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can only live in hope. Yeah, I thought the noble lord as well. He sort of proved the point that they seem to like keeping Putin and Russia around as a Swiss army knife of global politics. You know,
if all else fails, talk about Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. Brilliant. How we jumped to that one, I don't know, but there you are. Got to give him credence for that.
It was quite a jump. Listen, thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate that. Great call from Ian. Really good calls and texts, and there are really all the time, but particularly today. I don't know why, but I'm particularly enjoying the calls and voice messages today. Maybe it's because I've been away for a few days and back in the swing of things. It's great. Gary says, Peter, the Prime Minister is in contempt. He must resign in disgrace. Jane says, last week Rayner, this week Mandelson, hopefully next week Starmer, and this rotten government. John says, so will Mandelson lose his status as a lord? No. Surely if we have a moral compass, he cannot keep the title. The man is a snake. John, he'll be Lord Mandelson to the day he dies, I'm afraid. Gavin in Cornwall says, your guest, Clive from Labour, what an insult that he is a lord. He portrayed all that is wrong with Labour, refused to listen and accept anything was wrong. I can't believe we have another 4 years of these clowns. Yvonne says, oh my lord, we should have got rid of that crazy man supporting Mandelson. My blood pressure was sky high, says Yvonne. Mark in Norfolk, well, I hope I'm not laughing at your blood pressure being sky high. I know that was a figure of speech, but yes, I think we all perhaps had slightly raised blood pressure when that was happening. Mark in Norfolk says, this silly man is part of the blob and indicative of the stale and corrupt swathe of people that must be removed so that Reform UK can return this nation to its former glory. No indication, of course, that Clive Soley is in any way corrupt. I know that's not what Mark was saying, but I just have to say that. It keeps all on the right side of the law. Richard says, is from Costa del Sol. Lucky you, Richard. He should have his Lord title stripped off him. And Stephen in London, finally, before the break, says, Lord Soley is a prime example of the rotten politics in this country, defending the indefensible excuses, gaslighting in its true form, bluff and nonsense. Mandelson is unfit for office and has been proved 3 times in 2 different governments. Blair appointed him twice and then Starmer appointed him, knowing his past and present, and Solely defends him. Incredible, says Stephen in London. And Gordon Brown had him back. Gordon Brown had him back as business secretary as well. So over 4 decades, 3 scandals, now 3 resignations. Will Labour ever learn? We'll talk more about that and the sport in just a second.
because unfortunately this morning we're not going to be having a laugh because we're going to be thinking about what happened last night, which was so horrible. I don't even know where to begin. Charlie Kirk, a right-wing polemicist, I suppose you might say, a bloke who started Turning Point in America, a guy who was, to all intents and purposes, just a very interesting thinker, a very interesting, you know, argumentative type of person.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just a development on the Charlie Kirk story. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to the identification and arrest of the individual or individuals responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. That was, of course, yesterday at Utah Valley University in Orem in Utah. They have released a picture of the who they think is certainly a suspect they want to speak to. That is on their social media channels. We will return to that story, of course. There'll be more about that in the 6 o'clock bulletin as well. But in the meantime, let's talk about the sport.
Sports news from The Sun.
Mike Anstead is with me. He's the sport head of content at The Sun. It's all change at Nottingham Forest. New boss Ange Postecoglou has spoken about his time at Spurs, his former job. Tell us what he said.
Yeah, so Ange did a very interesting press conference at lunchtime today saying he knew he'd be sacked by Spurs. This was before the Europa League final, Spurs' first trophy in 17 years. Ange saying he knew the writing was on the wall from vibes, you know, being around Daniel Levy, who's now departed as well. But he said he basically didn't want to spoil the mood in the Spurs camp with the fans after they'd won it because they were jubilant. This trophy, the first one in 17 years. So he didn't go for another 16 days after that. So even though he was on the parade partying as hard as he was with the rest of the fans, he knew his time was up. Obviously he was sacked, and 3 months later he's rocking up at Nottingham Forest to replace Nuno, who himself was fired just a few days ago.
When Levy went, was your headline Levy leaves, and if not, why not?
We had Daniel Levy the other day, yeah. So
like a Levy, okay,
yeah,
good.
There's still a job for you on Sunsport, waiting,
Excellent,
Peter.
excellent. Well, there's no better man. Chelsea are in a spot of bother today. How many charges relating back to Roman Abramovich's days do they face?
So this has been dragging on for a little while, but Chelsea finally been charged today by the FA, so 74 charges. This is over what's alleged payments to agents, so a period between 2009 and 2022. That spans a long period of the Roman Abramovich era until he left. This is going to be interesting how this one unravels, really, but it involves a lot of big players. Eden Hazard is one of the names in there, Samuel Eto'o, Willian as well. The new owners actually flagged this to the FA, and that's part of their defence, that we raised the issue with you, we've done nothing wrong, and now we've cleared this up at the club. By doing that, they're hopeful they'll escape with a fine. It's going to be a pretty big fine, might be sort of, you know, £10 million, maybe upwards of that. But I don't think we're going to be talking about anything more than that, say points deductions or anything worse than that. But
we'll keep an eye on that. Sticking with London clubs, big match on Saturday, West Ham and Spurs, but the East London club has banned something?
This is fantastic, yeah. I mean, half and half scarves. You walk into a pub and ask fans about half and half scarves. Most of them roll their eyes and go, I'll never buy one of them. West Ham have actually come out and banned half and half scarves for the big game against Spurs. Now, this is actually part of what they call increased security measures.
Forgive me. What's a half and half scarf?
So half and half scarf, your normal scarf split in two. So in this occasion, it'd be West Ham on one side, Tottenham on the other.
Why on earth would someone wear one of those?
That's a very good question, Peter. I would never ever buy one in my life. You wouldn't. I think the large majority of football fans wouldn't.
Tourists buy them, apparently.
They're big with tourists, and I think perhaps if you went to, you know, let's say Europa League final, Spurs versus Man United, a souvenir, maybe is excusable, but on the whole, they're frowned upon. I don't know how they sell so many of them outside football stadiums.
But they've been banned from this match.
They've been banned from this match. This is part security measures, but I'd like to see this as the first step to a worldwide ban. Yeah. I think get them all on a big pile, burn them. Let's get rid of them.
Burn them. Maybe for Drive, you could have half Jeremy Kyle, half me. Maybe that would be...
I'd have a full Peter Cardwell one. That's all the way.
You said the correct words, Mike. And you've offered me a job writing headlines. My favourite headline ever, sports. Obviously, everyone knows Inter-Cali go ballistic, Celtic are atrocious, which was will never be be bested.
You can't say that one after a few beers either.
That's right. But my second favourite one was this one about the jockey who thought he'd won a race. He thought he'd won the race, but actually he started celebrating. Then another rider overtook him, won the race. The jockey, very, very annoyed. He thought he'd won the race, but he hadn't. And the headline was "Premature Jockey Elation."
Fantastic.
Which is very good.
There's some geniuses downstairs.
Certainly are. I'm sure you're one of them too, Mike. So as if I'm doubting it in some way. Mike Almstead there, Sport Head of Content at The Sun. Thanks very much for joining us in the studio. Lots more to discuss in the next hour as well. We'll talk about Peter Mandelson. We'll talk about Charlie Kirk as well. We'll get this perspective of the spokeswoman for Republicans overseas UK, Jennifer Ewing. Haven't spoken to her in a while actually. And a former number 10 advisor, former director of communications for the Conservative Party, Giles Kenningham, will be joining us in the studio. We'll also hear what's coming up in The Sun tomorrow as well. Will Barker's going to be there and take loads of calls, text, tweets and voice notes from you as well. Get them in over the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company this Thursday evening. Loads to talk about, including Keir Starmer's judgment, because in the last 10 days he's lost the Deputy Prime Minister and his ambassador to Washington. And guess what's happening next week? Donald Trump is here. He's the President of the United States over on his second state visit, and we've no ambassador. What on earth is going on? Was the diligence done correctly? Was the vetting done correctly? Well, we know because of Harry Cole's interview with Peter Mandelson that he was far closer to Jeffrey Epstein than he was letting on. It was only yesterday that Keir Starmer was backing up Mandelson in the House of Commons. We'll go through all of that. We'll talk to a former Director of Communications for the Conservative Party. Number 10 advisor Giles Kenningham is here with us. This hour we'll also talk about Charlie Kirk with Jennifer Ewing. She's a spokeswoman for Republicans overseas. We'll make sure we get your thoughts on everything that we're discussing today, whether it's those two topics, whether it's what we're talking about, the sport, whether it's Israel and the Eurovision Song Contest, whatever you want to talk about. Give me a shout. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, less than a minute please, or you can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the same number, 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 7 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. And just to recap that breaking news, the FBI offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to the identification and arrest of the individual or individuals responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk. This was yesterday at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. They've released that photograph of the person they want to speak to. It's a man in a black t-shirt and jeans. There's some sort of design, looks as if there's an American flag on there. He's in sunglasses and a baseball cap, and FBI from Salt Lake City are saying we are asking for the public's help identifying this person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, and they've given a number there as well. Some really shocking and chilling information about that as well. Ammunition found at the scene of Charlie Kirk's assassination reportedly engraved with pro-transgender and anti-fascist messages. So this is wording in support of trans and Antifa ideology. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, which for straightforwardness, I should say, and transparency, is owned by the same company as Talk. So they are reporting that bullet casings from the hunting rifle, which was discovered in nearby woodland, were engraved with wording in support of trans and Antifa ideology. That's a big story we're talking about today. Let us know your thoughts on Charlie Kirk, too, someone who's a real inspiration to many of our viewers and listeners. We're also talking about Peter Mandelson, the ambassador to the United States, no longer. He has been sacked. And of course, there are so many reasons why: his closeness to Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that there was so much information that wasn't in the public domain. Some of it was and was ignored. Earlier today, the Foreign Office Minister Stephen Doughty explained the reasons behind Lord Mandelson's dismissal.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States. The emails show, Mr. Speaker, that the depth and extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment. In particular, Mr. Speaker, Lord Mandelson's suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein's first conviction was wrongful and should be challenged is new information. And in light of that, Mr. Speaker, and mindful, as we all are, of the victims of Epstein's appalling crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect.
It was barely 24 hours ago that Keir Starmer was praising Peter Mandelson. He was standing up for him in the House of Commons. This was Prime Minister's questions just yesterday at lunchtime. Kemi Badenoch asking the questions for the Conservatives.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the U.K.-U.S. relationship.
Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Absolutely. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He's now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
Keir Starmer in the House of Commons yesterday. Just let's take a moment to recall Lord Mandelson's grovelling apology regarding his connection to Jeffrey Epstein. He spoke to Harry Cole. Harry used to be the political editor of The Sun. He's now, of course, over in Washington as The Sun's editor-at-large. He's got a new programme called Harry Cole Saves the West. This is what Peter Mandelson said in its first edition.
One, I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done. And I regret very much that I fell for his lies. I fell and accepted assurances that he had given me about his indictment, his original criminal case in Florida. Like very many people, I took at face value what he said. With hindsight, with fresh information, many years later, we realized that we had been wrong to believe him. He's a charismatic criminal liar, we now see, and I regret very much indeed. I felt it like an albatross around my neck since his death in 2018 or 19, when it was. I feel a tremendous sense of regret, not only that I met him in the first place, but that I continued the association, and I took at face value the lies that he fed me and many others.
Peter Mandelson there, the former U.S. ambassador, talking to Harry Cole on Harry's new programme, Harry Cole Saves the West. Well, Giles Kenningham is with me now in the studio, founder of Trafalgar Strategy, former number 10 advisor, former director of communications for the Conservative Party's 2015 general election win. Giles, so many questions.
So many questions. I mean, but when you boil it down, Peter, there are only really two possibilities here. Either Labour, Keir Starmer, his chief of staff, didn't do their due diligence when they were vetting Mandelson, so why didn't they do that? Were there questions they didn't want the answers to? Or if they did do their due diligence, then they would have got those answers, because it wouldn't take long, if you're doing due diligence, to ask him, when did the association stop? What was the nature of it? How often did you speak to him? Did you speak to him last time you were business secretary? And now...
Well, we know there was security advice that was ignored.
Security concerns. So it does, you know, it is incredibly damaging. It goes to the heart of Keir Starmer's judgment, and then you then raise the question, why were they trying to hang on to him for so long when, you know, after the Harry Cole interview it was so damaging? He said, look, there's more to come out, and yet you have ministers being rolled out doing the broadcast morning rounds having to defend the indefensible. Go on.
Do you think they just got a bit starry-eyed here? They said, you know, Blairism, 3 terms, wow, he's this, you know, towering figure of Labour's past. Yeah, let's get him in. Let's bring him back. Let's get the old crew back together and send him to Washington.
I think the sentiment behind it, that Mandelson was a seasoned political operator, obviously on some levels was very smart and slick. So I thought the idea of sending someone there with political experience who had been a politician was the right idea, but the wrong person. You know, David Miliband at the time was also in the frame. You think he would have been much more of a safe choice, obviously had previously been Foreign Secretary.
And so boring that you just know there would be no scandal.
No, completely. But I mean, I think this also goes, there's a wider question here, isn't there? I think firstly, you know, the political shelf life of political leaders seems to be getting shorter and shorter and shorter. I think this is symptomatic of the news cycle we live in as well. But Starmer was pretty much untested when he got into government. You know, he won because of a Tory collapse, not a Labour revival, and he was none of the above. He wasn't really tested in opposition, and there wasn't really any binding...
Does he test other people? Sorry, you mentioned David Miliband there, and I always have to say when anyone mentions David Miliband, he's the only person who's ever left politics to spend less time with his family. He was, of course, Starmer was untested, you say. Angela Rayner, arguably untested. Liz Kendall was someone who, you know, been around politics a long time, but welfare didn't get through. Are we seeing a pattern here? Because after 14 months, lots of people say they don't know what he believes, they don't know what he's for, they don't know what he's going to do, but what they see of what he's doing is a shambles that they don't like.
Well, I think the problem is there was never... We knew what he was against, but we never knew what he stood for. You know, with Blair, at least you could say there was some kind of bindingology which people were behind. There was a bit of a vision. There's never been a vision or a story with Mandelson. We've had the 6 missions, the 5 commitments, God knows what's else. You know,
take away the number you first thought of.
His belief in what he stands for changes from week to week to week. Now, you know, and that starts to unravel when you are in the midst of a crisis and you've got nothing which people can rally behind, not a wider story, a wider belief, a wider mission to get to.
You won an election campaign for David Cameron in 2015, an election campaign a lot of people didn't think he was going to win, or at least if they thought he was going to win, they thought it might be another coalition with the Liberal Democrats. You were a backroom operator with a really big voice in the leader's ear. What would you say to Starmer now if he brought you? I mean, he's not going to, but if he brought you in and said, "Sort it out, Giles," what would you say? What would you say? How do you get it back?
Well, there needs there needs to be a story where you're trying to get to. You need to paint the sunny up, and secondly, it takes a cabinet minister at least a year to get hold of a brief, to be on top of it. It's like running a FTSE 100 company. So this whole reshuffle, it's like moving deck chairs around the Titanic. Okay, they've
Fine when it left Belfast.
Changing the personnel, but it's all back to square one. So these departments, a year in, you can't affect change. So actually leave people in place for a good amount of time. Then what's the story that everyone's trying to sell? I think the other fundamental problem he has, which sounds quite counterintuitive, but his majority is too big, because there are plenty of people in the Labour Party who are never going to get a job, right? So they don't feel any patronage, they don't feel any loyalty. I think also what really stood out for me, small thing but does make a big difference in politics, when he appointed his ministers, it was widely reported and confirmed that below the cabinet, he was getting Sue Gray, the then chief of staff, to appoint people, which to me was absolutely crazy. It's got a political tin ear. It's like in politics, what you have as prime minister, you have patronage. You're going to need these people at some time. Personally appoint them, so when you didn't come with your votes, look, I appointed you. Secondly, everyone's got an ego. They'll love to be able to tell their friends that the prime minister personally appointed them. Yet he didn't. And I think that's the other thing which is bearing out is how good is his emotional intelligence? Does he have that tin ear? And is he very clubbable? Because
and is he political enough?
Well, exactly. But
does he understand politics?
Does he understand? How much is he working the political party? Because it feels like he doesn't have that. And this comes back to my earlier point. I don't think he was ever properly tested in opposition. I think now it's being borne out, because if he had been, you think he should be a lot more agile and fleet of foot when things like this happen.
A lot of people are going to contact me and going to say, Giles, Kemi Badenoch is none of those things you've just said. Well, what do you think of her performance?
I still think she has a long way to go. I think she's also untested, and I think she has got an incredibly difficult job. I can't remember the last time a Tory opposition leader after an election then got in, and she's also got the added problem of reform snapping at her heels. And I think
it's more than snapping.
Yeah, and the issue is going to be for her is that obviously everyone's like, you don't want to release policy too early in an electoral cycle because situation changes, times change. But I think she might be forced into releasing policy earlier in order to save herself, to actually force reform into taking some positions. So I think, yeah, very, very difficult. And I think also, like as you were saying earlier on, the shelf life of leaders, and maybe this has been an outlier of the past year, is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Since Blair was 10 years, Brown was 3, Cameron was 6.
Why does the public have no patience, do you think?
I think it's been a sort of confluence of factors colliding. I think we have a news cycle which is just unrelenting, and it catches people more and more. But then you've had all these black swan moments, whether that's been, Gaza war, whether that's been COVID, Ukraine. Obviously Brexit was unexpected, and I think there's been the level of volatility is so high in the world, it's very hard for people to stay on for longer.
Yet you have Nigel Farage, in many ways a very un-Westminster politician, although he's there at the moment, of course, someone who is in many ways very old school, who's connecting, who's cutting through. And actually, he suggested himself today that were he to receive the call to be ambassador.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to receive that call somehow. But even to sort of make that quip and even to make that suggestion is something that very few political leaders would do. He connects, doesn't he?
He does, and actually, to be fair, he's been around for a long time, but he's never really held political office. He's been on the sideline lobbying bricks. He's been a very effective campaigner. But he's also a symptom of a failure of the main two political parties to connect and to deliver. And the longer that goes on, the more you can see reform coming in. I think what you see now is the voters are a lot more transactional. It probably would have been unthinkable 10, 15 years ago if Labour had been hit that hard in the 2019 election for them to come back in one cycle. But they did with a thumping majority. So I know a lot of people are saying, look, it looks really difficult for Farage to get a majority next time. He might be the biggest party. But equally, I can see a situation where he might well get a majority.
Very interesting. Who should the next ambassador be? Just a career diplomat you've never heard of?
No, I actually think it should be someone political like David Miliband.
Okay, you think that would be a good idea?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And from Starmer's perspective, the state visit coming up, I mean, America, Washington's just going to be rolling their eyes at
well,
this.
It's going to. I mean, I was just thinking about this on the way here. I mean, it'd be very interesting to see what the press conferences are like, because you know, I would say we have probably the most robust press in the world, a lot less deferential than they are.
You've got the scars on your back.
No, I think it's good. It's healthy for democracy. But you know, you can imagine these press conferences with Trump and Starmer. It might all be about Epstein. And then what happens? Does Trump walk out? You can see Trump saying, I've had enough. But, you know, you can see if the press really go for him, how's that going to play out? So, yeah, I think it's a PR and a diplomatic nightmare, potentially.
Fascinating, and we will cover it in great depth here on Talk. For the meantime, Giles, don't be a stranger to the studio. Giles Kenningham, founder of Trafalgar Strategy, former number 10 advisor and former director of communications for the Conservative Party's 2015 general election win. How long ago that now seems. Giles, thank you. Appreciate that. If you have any thoughts on what Giles says, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Thank you to Clive, who says the only thing Mandelson regrets is being found out, just like our Angela et al. Tony says, Peter, great show. How is it that the Prime Minister never answers a direct question? He just repeats the same rhetoric without answering the question. If anything, it's totally rude, says Tony. Derek says Lord Frost is the right person to become the new ambassador to the United States. And Alison from Kent has been in touch and says, my favourite headline was about a footballer. Oh yeah, we were talking about this earlier on actually, about our favourite headlines in the Sun Sports section. You remember Inverness, Caledonian Thistle, Super Cali, Go Ballistic Celtic, are atrocious. My second favourite one I was saying was about a horse rider who thought he had won a race, started celebrating, then to his horror realised when another rider overtook him, won the race, and that his celebration was too soon. And the headline was premature jockey elation, which I enjoyed. And Alison Kent has been in touch and said, my favourite headline was about a footballer called Julian Dix, who I think played for West Ham. He twisted his ankle, couldn't play the next game, and the headline simply read out, swollen Dix out, says Alison Kent, factually accurate. Robin Taplow says, Cardi P, my favourite headlines are both from The Sun. When Tiger got busted. Oh yes, Tiger Woods, of course, got busted. The Sun headline was Tiger, Lion, Cheetah. Going back many years and off topic again from The Sun, Freddie Starr ate my hamster. That was a classic from back in the day. Keep them coming in, your favourite tabloid headlines, and you can text me them at 72222 with the word talk in your text. Stay with us here on Talk.
You know when there's always sort of something lurking in the background from how can they just go, right, it's just like a mum and a father and son meeting, there's been some bad blood, how do we then just sort of get it out in the open? And that's what is needed. But and it is probably a relief that actually there's no Meghan lurking in the back. You know, when he goes back to his hotel tonight, okay, he might get on the phone to her and talk to her about it, but hopefully that's where it will end.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Nikki, who says, regarding the Mandelson appointment, James cleverly has posted on X to say it's the job of the Foreign Secretary to choose the ambassador. That's right, he's a former Foreign Secretary too, of course. Does that mean that David Lammy could be the next one facing the exit door in Starmer's government? The Americans have suffered enough, Nikki. Let's not impose David Lammy on them. And if you haven't watched David Lammy on Celebrity Mastermind, please, please do. I have two words for you, and they are Red Leicester. Dawn in Chelmsford says, I wonder which Labour figure will have to resign or be sacked next week. Starmer is so unlucky, says Dawn in Chelmsford. Dawn, shall we run a book or maybe do some sort of, Wheel of Fortune style reveal thing? Maybe we can get, someone in a sparkly jacket to kind of, unveil the names. I'll give you 5-2 on Peter Kyle. 7-3 on Emily Thornberry. Get your bets in there. I mean, it just seems to go on. 10 days and 2 of them have gone. And Kaz in Bedford says the assassination of Charlie Kirk demonstrates that the demonisation of the right has to stop. It was very gracious of Lucy Connolly to say Ricky Jones should not go to prison as she was forced to endure. She wasn't allowed to just apologise like Gary Lineker. She showed a huge demonstration of being the bigger person. But we have to address the imbalance of what Ricky Jones was allowed to get away with, says Kaz in Bedford. He says, welcome back, Kaz. Thank you. Really appreciate that. And Debbie says, in Lincolnshire, oh, actually, do you know what? I'll come back to that a little bit later on, if you don't mind, Debbie, because for the meantime, let's just stick with Charlie Kirk. Quite a number of people have been in touch, and one person says Democrats who celebrate the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk need to take a long, hard look at themselves. And for those who don't perhaps know that much about Charlie Kirk, a lot of our viewers and listeners big fans of his, but maybe you're not too familiar with what he said and who he was. Let's have a clip of the Conservative commentator just explaining what he did.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
Shortly after the announcement of Charlie Kirk's assassination, President Trump spoke about his friend.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
The FBI has also put out a number of updates on various aspects of this. They've put a photograph out of a suspect they're looking for. They've also done verbal briefings as well. Let's hear the latest one.
This morning I can tell you that we have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. The FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis. Now, I understand there are a lot of questions about motive. I assure you that all leads, tips are being fully investigated. The FBI has brought every resource to bear, and we will continue to do so throughout the course of this investigation.
Well, Jennifer Ewing is a spokeswoman for Republicans overseas. Jennifer, a dark day for democracy, and what a tragic, horrendous irony that someone who was so insistent, who made it his life's work to debate reasonably with people, to say, yeah, you're wrong and here's why, but nonetheless we're going to get on at the end of it. Well, his life was ended by someone who disagreed with him and used violence to show that, to assassinate him, to take away this person from society and from his family.
Hi, Peter, you're right. And, you know, the irony is not lost on people. The fact that what Charlie Kirk liked to do was have dialogue with people, have discussion, so that would reduce people's urge to do violent things against one another. And one of the things he was really well known for was when he was going across the United States at these various college campuses, obviously there would be people there in attendance who were fans of his, but also there would be people who were quite hostile, who did not like him. And he'd always shout out to the audience, you know, those who disagree with me, come to the front, which I thought was a wonderful way of not only not living in an echo chamber, but really trying to figure out what are the differences. You know, what are the differences that, you know, two human beings, two Americans usually have, and can we get to the bottom of it? And he was trying, you know, he lived by the First Amendment. He was trying to do everything right with regards to civil discourse that the rest of us should be doing every day. You know, listen to other people. Doesn't mean you're always going to have your mind changed, but he certainly started a movement.
Tell us about that, Jennifer, because well as being a great debater and someone who talked a lot to loads of people he disagreed with, he inspired a lot of people. He got a lot of young people involved in politics and actually really helped Donald Trump win the most recent election.
Oh, 100%. And this is very personal for the president and for the vice president and for a lot of his team. They were close to him personally, but also I think they'd be the first to say that Charlie Kirk ended up getting that elusive for Republicans 18 to 29-year-old youth vote to swing towards the Republicans for the first time, you know, in a very, very long time. Usually they vote Democrat. But Charlie had a fascinating background in many ways. He was he's the American dream. You know, grew up kind of humble backgrounds. He certainly didn't have a lot of connections or come from a, you know, ultra wealthy family. He didn't graduate from college. And from the time he was 18, he really, I believe he was writing to Breitbart and said, I really want to get the youth involved in a conservative movement and for values about, you know, the United States of America. And you know, he was only 31 when he was assassinated yesterday. So, you know, you do the math. He wasn't around a long time, but I think you can argue it's probably one of the most important and impactful political movements, you know, certainly in my lifetime.
We know the FBI are looking very, very closely. They've got a suspect they're looking for. We'll bring, of course, our viewers and listeners up to date with any developments on that today, tomorrow, whenever that is here on Talk. But just, and we can see actually on the screen now if people are watching, I'll describe it for the people who are listening. FBI in Salt Lake City, which is of course the capital of Utah, saying they're asking for the public's help identifying this person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. And there's a man there in a baseball cap and sunglasses and a black top and jeans as well. When it comes to Charlie Kirk, when it comes to the person he was, when it comes to the values that he had, what legacy do you think he will have? We know the President has already said he is going to posthumously award him the Medal of Honor.
Yeah, I mean, the first that comes to mind is he was incredibly brave. And after the assassination attempt on President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania last July, quite a few of Charlie's friends went to him and said, are you sure you want to continue to do these outside rallies? You know, this is far different than doing a podcast or some of the things other people do. He's in these open fields at these campuses. And he was very well aware of the dangers. So bravery is number one. He was a husband, he was a father, he was a son, he was a brother, he was a friend, he was a Christian, and he was a patriot. So I think that anybody that thought that silencing Charlie, which is clearly what they were trying to do, the idea that Charlie wanted to bring people from all different kinds of backgrounds and political beliefs together to have rational discussion was a threat to somebody. This movement will not be, stamped down. I think there's already a lot of young men and women that looked up to him and wanted to see a better America, and I think it'll continue to grow.
Jennifer, thank you as always. Jennifer Ewing, their spokeswoman for Republicans Overseas UK. Stephen West Sussex says, Peter, the absolute tragedy with the Charlie Kirk assassination. Michael Yaki earlier on, the Democratic commentator we had on, he spoke a great line: disagreement cannot be settled at the end of a gun. Powerful words. John Farnham, You're the Voice comes to mind. As an Australian, it's okay to disagree, talk, debate and vote the way I was taught democracy should be, says Steve in West Sussex. Yeah, that's a great song from John Farnham, You're the Voice. I was actually listening to it this morning, believe it or not. That bagpipe solo, my goodness, it's incredibly strong. Listen, thank you for all your messages today. I really, really appreciate them. I'm sorry we haven't been able to read them out, but we've plenty of time, 25 minutes to be exact, between now and the end of the programme. We're going to take a peek inside the Sun. Will be with us in a second. Will Barker, who's the Deputy Head of News, will tell us what's going to be in the paper tomorrow. We'll also take as many of your calls as I can fit in between now and 7 o'clock. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Julia will indeed be back on Monday between 10 and 1, so we can all look forward to that. I'm here tomorrow for Drive as well, and over the weekend from 10 on Saturday and Sunday, so I hope you can join me for all of those programmes, and indeed join Julia when she's back on Monday at 10 o'clock. Want to have a look inside the Sun now. Delighted that Will Barker is with us, Deputy Head of News. How are you doing?
All very good, thank you.
Tell us about the government spending millions on housing migrants in student accommodation. You've been looking into this.
Well, our reporter Robin Perry has stumbled upon a planning doc up in a northern university where the government, I think, are secretly now shifting away from the hotels, because obviously they filled all the hotels that they can get their hands on, and their new strategy appears to be using university halls. They've put in a sort of planning application for a block in this city, very well-known city, which we'll be revealing in the paper tomorrow, yeah, it seems to be a change in how they do it.
We've had hotels. People have been talking about houses of multiple occupancy as well. Student accommodation, that's an interesting one. It's a different one as well, and of course there will be understandable concerns about that, especially if they're near other young people. I'm not saying for a second that all migrants are a danger, but some of them certainly are.
Exactly. Then it's not going to be a block where students are.
Okay.
It's a sole block just that they are going to take over. But this is a time where, I mean, the university have their own problems. That further education is completely crippled and needing money, and they're taking away from private landlords. They're taking away these blocks at a time when students need it, and so presumably will drive the cost of accommodation up round there, and also then cause the problems that we've been seeing around hotels there as well. So,
tell us about the manhunt as well. We've been talking about the assassin of Charlie Kirk. There's new information coming out really all the time on this, and we know that, I mean, there's a photograph now of a suspect that they want. Also chilling news from the Wall Street Journal as well on engravings on the actual weapon itself.
It is. It's very. So we've got our U.S. reporter Scarlett House out on there. She's sort of joined the manhunt for the shooter of Charlie Kirk, and as you say, FBI put out some images an hour or so ago. I'm sure by the end of the night, the way the internet works, somebody's going to start talking about who this guy is.
Yeah.
I think they probably do know who he is, but they're kind of keeping their cards close to their chest at this stage. They've got sort of his footprint and all that, and I think they're trying to do facial recognition using all the tricks they can. But yeah, no, it's very worrying that these bullet markings and what's all behind this awful event.
Speaking of American stories, your new editor-at-large has had a sort of fairly quiet start to his role out there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Have you heard much from him?
No, he doesn't like to do things in a big grandesque way. Our editor-at-large, he's he had an
Harry
amazing.
Cole saves the West.
Yeah, yes,
typically understated. Name of a programme.
Yeah.
Yes.
So no, I mean he got his man after his great revelation from his first show that Mandelson was hugely apologetic and fessed up to his very long friendship with Epstein. But as far as we're concerned, the focus now lands on Keir. Like, why did he employ in the first place when he knew apparently there were security briefings against him, and then he sort of dilly-dallied. He gave him his backing pretty much like Rayner did last week.
It's been a hell of a 10 days for the Prime Minister, and we've got to ask questions about his judgment, although apparently we shouldn't ask questions about those, according to Lord Soley, the former chairman of the Labour Party, who lambasted me earlier in the programme for even bringing it up. But certainly, I'm glad you're doing it in the paper tomorrow, because there really are many, many questions, although I'm sure you're as excited as the rest of the country about who's going to be the new deputy leader of the Labour Party.
Yes, well, he's down to 2, isn't it? I think is the feeling.
Yeah, Bridget Phillipson, and we think as well the woman who got sacked, whose name briefly escapes me.
Yeah, mine as well.
Come on, Ryan. Lucy Powell.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. The former leader of the House of Commons, who said it was dog whistle politics to talk about the rape gangs inquiry. But certainly one thing you shouldn't say to Lucy Powell is calm down, Grandma. Tell us why.
Yes, well, if you're getting into a sticky situation with a guest ever and they become insulting, according to boffins, the thing you need to say is calm down grandma, because instantly this is a catch-all term that will win any argument.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, boomer. You're not a boomer. You're far too young to be a boomer.
Really not a boomer.
You're not a boomer. No, you're definitely not. Far too young. Far too young. But this is interesting. This is BBC Science Focus magazine. It turns out that the impact of an insult depends as much on the recipient as it does on the supplier. When it comes to straightforward insults, that lack of socio-historical weight, targets of notable control over outcomes. I mean, it's getting very scientific,
Oh,
isn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah, no, there's some heavy science gone into it. See, this is the key, where they're saying if you're implying the assaulter seems like a lower status or more easily ridiculed party, then by putting them down by like that, you win the argument.
But you can say it to anybody. You can say it to anyone of any age.
Yeah.
Calm down, grandma.
Yeah.
And just win the argument.
And win the argument, yeah.
I should just say that, like,
it's like an ace card.
Well, I've quite a short show. If I just said to people, "Calm down, grandma,"
Yeah.
I mean, sort of, I've won the argument. That's it. That's the way it is. Sorry, producer just suggesting something in my ear. I won't say out loud on the air, but very funny nonetheless. I mean, this is. I mean, when it comes to newsrooms, we know that sometimes there can be. The air can be peppered with some interesting phrases. What's the best insult you've heard?
Well, once again, I probably can't say it on air.
Yes.
Yeah, there's lots of four-letter words all strung together in one sentence, aimed at somebody in a really cruel way. But yeah, I mean, they were like sort of, I can imagine pubs back in the day. There were areas where any old things were sort of said.
Certainly,
but I mean, yeah, it's completely changed now.
Oh, absolutely.
We were talking about HR last night, and you can't talk in any way that manner anymore.
I remember someone actually did say to me one time, "You're in a place of no. I want to bring you to a place of yes." This is like that. This is just absolute
corporate jargon.
nonsense. I'm sorry. Thank you very much indeed, as always, Will Barker, Deputy Head of News at The Sun, and definitely not a boomer. You're a millennial, presumably?
Well, I'm 50, so what does that mean?
Whatever it is, but you're definitely not a boomer anyway. Listen, thank you so much, Will, much appreciated, and we'll take Gen X. Apparently you're Gen X. So we've checked it. So we will take more of your calls next here on Talk.
That's, you know, when there's always sort of something lurking in the background from, how can they just go, right, it's just like a father and son meeting, there's been some bad blood, how do we then just sort of get it out in the open? And that's what is needed. But and it is probably a relief that actually there's no Meghan lurking in the back, when he goes back to his hotel tonight. Okay, he might get on the phone to her and talk to her about it, but hopefully that's where it will end.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Deb's in Lincolnshire. I promised you I'd read your message, and now I'm about to. Why does that awful man, Gary Lineker, not just stick to what he knows, football? He is awful. Once again, he's been given a platform to spout his unwanted opinions and spreading hatred. Keep the good word with exposing these idiots. He could voice about the state of our country, the ones he had the privilege to represent. Best wishes, Debs. Thank you to Judith as well. He says, I wish I would have known you were in Israel. Would have loved to invite you over for a Shabbat dinner next time. We would love to host you. Shabbat Shalom from the Holy Land. Judith, I might take you up on that the next time. That would be a lovely thing to do. Thank you very much indeed for that invitation. I should say the reason it was all kept top secret is because honestly, because of what's happening, I didn't want my mum to know I was in Israel because of obviously the very, very dangerous nature of the fact that there is a war going on in that region. I only told her today that I was there, which was probably a little bit naughty, but nonetheless I just didn't want my mum to worry. Richard says, how can Starmer be taken seriously at all? Stood in opposition going on about Tories giving jobs to his mates. What is Starmer doing? I mean, the hypocrisy is insane. Neelan Salisbury says, afternoon Peter, Mandelson is a wannabe, always has been, always will be. The only way he could maintain his associations and lifestyle with the wealthy was being their useful idiot lackey. Please Starmer, save us from more of this and go. And Robin Lincoln says, great show, well conducted, thank you. I'm sure you've heard of the phrase two birds with one stone. Perhaps Starmer could promote Ed Miliband to the US ambassador position. That way we can get him out of the way and away from net zero. I think there are other ways of getting rid of Ed Miliband. I'd send him to the back benches, I must say. I just think he has absolutely nothing to contribute. Although I'd love to interview him about net zero and why he thinks it's a good idea. I have offered him the opportunity. There's one other person who is having a think about this job. Let's remind ourselves what Nigel Farage said to Alex Phillips a bit earlier on today on Talk.
Somebody of that type who's got a good knowledge of current affairs, who knows about negotiation, and someone that can walk into the Oval Office and Trump could look him in the eye and say, I can do business with this guy.
Might that describe you?
Well, I don't think they'll offer the job to me, but I have to say it's a rather lovely building.
If they did, would you take it, or are you sort of committed to doing what you're doing back here?
What a question. I mean, if I was actually, I tell you what, if I was Starmer, I would offer it to me, because if I accepted it, it would get me out of the way, wouldn't it?
No.
So I don't think I possibly could. No, but it would be very tempting in terms of lifestyle.
Steve in Stoke says, has anybody opened a book on the next ambassador? Who will Starmer pick next? I'm having a tenner on Eddie Izzard. Who would you like to be the next ambassador to the United States? There was a lovely woman from Wales, actually, a few months ago, before Mandelson was appointed, who said she'd like me to do it. Of course, Nigel Farage, they're talking about the Great House, which is this beautiful, beautiful ambassador's residence. And there's a great story in the book by the former ambassador to America, who is, yes, Kim Darroch, thank you, Ryan. Lord Darroch, Kim Darroch, who tells a great story of a special advisor, not me, I hasten to add, a special advisor who was out, shall we say, for a few sherbets, came back, couldn't get in, and thought it would be a really good idea to climb over the wall and climb over the fence. It was not a good idea, let me tell you, because there's quite a lot of security. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk. Dave is in London and has given me a ring about Charlie Kirk, this assassination. We're getting developments, and if there are any more, of course, during Kevin O'Sullivan's programme after 7 o'clock, we'll make sure we bring them to you right here on Talk as soon as we get them. Dave, what are your thoughts on Charlie Kirk today? Thanks for the call.
Hi, Peter.
Hi there.
I am beyond shocked. I am beyond angry. I'm getting angrier and angrier as the day goes by, because they haven't just silenced Charlie Kirk, they've silenced the attempt to give the students on American campuses a voice. And I don't think we'll get that back now. And I'm just wondering, I know it's conspiracy, but I just don't think this is a lone wolf shooter. This is an absolute perfect situation for the Democrats, because Charlie Kirk was single-handedly...
I don't think there are too many Democrats who are happy about this. In fairness, Dave, we have heard from many Democrats who are very sad about this situation and have sent their condolences to his family.
I think they have. I think behind closed doors they are thinking, thank God. I don't believe them for 1 minute, because his influence was huge. I used to watch 3 or 4 videos of his a week, you know, just clips here and there, debates he was having. He was so articulate. I mean, he went to the Oxford and Cambridge Union and did, you know, head-on debates with, I believe, Oxford students who quite...
Yeah, I've seen those clips, actually. Someone was showing me one of those clips today. I mean, he was really articulate. He could take on anybody.
I know, and our so-called creme de la creme from Oxford, Cambridge was laughable. In fact, if anyone tells me now they went to those colleges, I say, well, never mind. Maybe you'll get some... But, you know, I am in despair. I really am, because they won't get that back. There's nobody that's got the breadth of knowledge that Charlie had. He really did know his subjects into massive detail. And some of his debates, I mean, if you take the abortion issue, I think in the UK we see that as an agreed position, right? It's not
largely, yeah. That's a fair point.
But in America, it can go from anything. Some people believe a baby can be terminated there right up to term till it's born.
That's right.
Others say no. Now, and he would handle those debates so well, and he changed my opinion on it. He used to say, people say, why are you anti-abortion? And he'd say, well, I'm not, I'm pro-life. And then they would say, well, you know, and he would say, I don't believe in murdering humans. And then they would say, well, it's not a human because it hasn't been born. And then he would say, okay, if a pregnant woman got shot tomorrow, is that a double homicide or a single homicide if she died?
Make people think in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they would go, well, that's not the point, or they'd move on to another issue. And he was really good at taking the air out of their arguments, if you like, and making them think. Dave, but I don't think that's going to come back. No one's going to step into that role ever again.
Dave, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's Dave in London there. I just want to fit in Paula in High Barnet, who has a thought on Eurovision and what Ireland has said. It says it wants to withdraw if Israel continue to take part in Eurovision. Paula, your thoughts on this? You're very welcome to the programme.
Hi, Peter.
Hi there.
I spoke to you before. I'm Irish citizen. My mother's Irish. I am perplexed with the Irish because they've got a massive situation. They've got a problem over there with certain minorities and immigration. And on the other hand, they close the Israeli embassy down. And on the other hand, they're hating on the Jews, and I'm perplexed because
in fairness, Paula, I mean, listen, I think we're absolutely on the same page, but just factually, the Irish embassy made the decision to withdraw the diplomats, just on a point of fact there. But you're everything you're saying is basically correct. Yeah. Sorry, do go ahead.
Okay, so what I don't understand is like they're holding the EBU hostage to this, and they're saying it's to do with the journalists over there and the murder of journalists, and not reference that maybe the civilians so much. I read in RTE it was to do with the journalists. So
yeah, there are all sorts of points they say international journalists should be let into Gaza. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know what that's got to do with a musical entry to Eurovision.
Exactly. And this is what I don't understand, because, I mean, even, I'm going to reference it. During the Second World War, my grandfather fought for the British, and he was Irish. He fought for the British. And there was about, I think, 80,000 Irish men and women who fought in the Second World War.
And so much of that is lost, and so many people don't remember their legacy and their contribution, Paula.
No, but at the same time, what's really scary is there's a lot of Irish men and women couldn't return back to Ireland. Because their own government banned them from having jobs, banned them from accessing, benefits, and also could tell them it was called
there's so much that we could go into, Paula, but we're just the time is against us. But listen, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate that. Kevin O'Sullivan is here on the other side of the news. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Peter.
What are you going to be talking about this evening?
Well, obviously a big show tonight. Sensational development, according to the Wall Street Journal, on the Charlie Kirk shooter investigation, the hunt for the killer. The Wall Street Journal, very respected publication, of course, is saying that bullet cases were found near the scene, engraved with pro-transgender messages and also anti-fascist messages. And also there's very intriguing pictures of someone walking up the stairs towards the roof that the FBI have released. There's a £100,000 reward, $100,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest of the culprit. But the hunt continues. So obviously we'll be looking at that, and we'll be asking why it is